Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 9th, 2024 Johnson City Regional Planning Commission meeting. If you're here to speak during the public hearing portion of our agenda, please wait until I recognize you and open the floor, and then please come one at a time to the podium up front, give your name and address, and then I'll give you 3 minutes to make your comments. And as you have your comments, please address them to the commission. Please don't address them to the audience or to staff. We'd like to please get your information directly come to us. I'll now call the meeting to order at 5 minutes after 6. All right, we have an agenda before us. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion to approve and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I apologize to everyone. I overlooked the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please forgive me for that. Vice Mayor Murphy, would you lead us in a invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes, sir. Be honored to. Let us pray. Dear gracious Father, we thank you on today that we're able to come and conduct the business on behalf of the city we know as Johnson City. I pray, God, that decisions made tonight be pleasing unto your sight, that all things be done in decency and order. In Jesus' name, amen. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. We have before us also the minutes of the March 12th meeting of the Planning Commission. Does anyone have any changes or corrections or additions to those minutes?
No, Mr. Chairman. Second.
All right, I have a motion to accept and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Now for a relatively new section on our agenda, that is going to be public comment. That is a section on our agenda where the public is welcome to come to the podium and address any topic that's on their mind, but it has to be on our agenda tonight. I'll give you 3 minutes, and everyone has registered for this. I think at least they have pre-registered for this, so I've got your names listed. And you're welcome to come to the agenda to make your comments for 3 minutes, please. Is Ms. Regina Guess here? Please come forward.
Hi, good evening. Hi, I'm Regina Guess. I live at 2210 Lakeland Drive, Johnson City, Tennessee. I'm here in behalf of our neighborhood in regards to the rezoning of Princeton and Nave. We are a neighborhood of probably 50-plus kids, and plus our whole neighborhood is a walking, riding bicycles, just an active neighborhood, and I just don't feel comfortable with the idea of this complex being at the end of Nave. The issue I have with it, in general, our neighborhood does not want it. We have signed a petition to let you guys know that we are not in favor of it, for one. Number two, that coming off of Nave with our situation, we already have cut-throughs from Princeton, from Mount Castle to Princeton already. So this will just increase the amount of that situation. Plus, we just got through, just a couple years ago, getting speed bumps through our neighborhood. Trying to keep people from speeding, and so then this is just going to increase because traffic's going to be coming onto Nave, and of course not everybody's going to go Princeton. They're going to cut through, so I'm asking for you guys to reevaluate that situation in regards to our community, our staff, just in regards to our kids in our community, the older people in our community. We're an active community that walks, runs, are outside. So I'm asking you to, I want you to veto it. I'm just going to be up front, blunt. I just want you to veto it. We are not here, we're here representing our area that we don't want it. That's all I'm just asking.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
All right, the next person on the list is Ms. Courtney Stewart. Is that person here? Can you give us your name and address, please?
Courtney Stewart, 2219 Lakeland Drive. And so I'm going to kind of go off what she's saying. The whole neighborhood kind of agrees. We've walked around, talked to everybody, have a petition. The traffic is probably the main issue just because it is in our neighborhood, the proposed entrance to it. But I also have questions about the actual people that are developing it, their plan, because we didn't get a lot of information at the neighborhood meeting. They didn't have a mock-up of what they look like. They didn't have a price range of what they're gonna be in. Or if they did, they didn't share that with us. The traffic count, we don't have, I don't know if we get that, but we didn't get any kind of copy or a report showing what it ended up being. And they didn't do a traffic count from Nave to Mountcastle, which is already cut through, like she said, for a lot of people. And that would probably greatly increase with add another 30, 40 cars in the proposed building. Let's see. I haven't been able to find anything about the developer. Not saying I'm a expert at finding things, but just an easy Google search. Nothing much to see about them. I can't see any of their previous work. I don't know anything about being able to verify their quality of work. No local stuff being built that I've seen of theirs. So I am a little wary of their expertise in it. Another issue was that Princeton couldn't be used as an entrance because of the creek. And I believe the one person mentioned by state law, there has to be some kind of conservation with the creek. So my question is, why can there not be a culvert to not interrupt the creek and do the bridge over that? I know it costs a significant amount more money, so I don't know if that was their intention to not look down that avenue, but I would like that to be considered. Let's see. And yeah, I think I've touched on pretty much everything. I think the most concern is the traffic and then the lack of information that was disclosed at the neighborhood meeting and lack of transparency that we received from them. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. All right, the next name on the list is Mr. Randy Greer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Randy Greer. I live at 2317 Nave Drive. If you look on the plat, I'm right across the street, directly across the street from this development. I appreciate all the neighbors that have come out tonight. And then again, just even to Todd, who's been busy the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's redesigned the plat like 3 times that I know about. 3 different layouts, and I appreciate his efforts. He's been listening. He's done a lot of work. And Bryce and all that have worked, if you look at the agenda and all the plan that's been put together, it looks wonderful. It looks like so much work has been put into it to this point already, to the point to where really I want to remind you all that my understanding is that there's a decision to be made tonight, whether to approve, whether to delay, or to disapprove this proposal, this rezoning. And I look at the plan and the agenda, and it kind of I get the feel that it's been decided. Of course, it even says in the agenda that you all are approving this proposal to go before the city commission. And I get the sense that it's still in your hands to say yes or no. And I look at the agenda, 6 items after item number 2 tonight are all big developments. They're all, 9 acres, 5 acres, they're all multi-unit or single residence kind of homes that are being planned for Johnson City. So there's no shortage of new homes coming to Johnson City. And our neighborhood is almost filled. This lot across from my house is the last R2 lot. Probably, around, I know we looked for a place to buy or build for over a year, and finally settled on 2317 Nave, because location, we like the location. And as far as finding a lot to build on or a lot to even a place to buy, I know there's a shortage. And you've put a lot of time into this plan, but I understand you're going to need reasons to say no. You're going to need reasons to delay. And we've put our heart into this. We've knocked on doors. We've tried to get the word out. And I just want to ask, where does community support fall in the measure of the decision tonight? Is it, as far as reasons, you're going to hear about traffic, you're going to hear about noise, you're going to hear about all the other things, trash, fire school, green space, water runoff, HOA issues, maintenance, traffic, parking in the streets, all these things, they flood our minds and things that we've spoke of and have communicated to you. And I guess you could say it's going to affect me a lot because I'm right across the street. And it's going to affect others in different ways, directly or indirectly. And the payback is obvious for the
That's your
for the
time,
property
sir.
owner.
That's 3 minutes. I'm sorry to interrupt
Thank
you.
you
I
very much.
apologize.
Thank you, sir.
What's the
Mr.
benefit
Greer.
for our neighborhood?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. The next to speak to the question of rezoning at Princeton and Nave is Paula Eldred. Is she here? Please come forward. And if you could give us your name and address.
Good evening. My name is
evening.
Paula Eldred. I live at 2223 Lakeland Drive. I want to speak on the issue tonight. I have several reasons. One is we have very little green space left in Johnson City. We're quickly filling it up. This little lot down there with that little stream, there are at least 8 to a dozen deer that live in there. There is a mallard and a little female duck that comes every year, and they walk all over our neighborhood, but they make their nest there at the creek. I saw turkeys with 12 little hatchling turkeys one day roaming in that little field. And you just don't get to see that in the middle of the city, and we just keep running it off and running it off. On another side of developing Johnson City, I know that people want to come here. We have great schools, we have the university, we have health care, but I've been a nurse for Ballot Health for 24 years. Health care and education system in Johnson City is overwhelmed. The schools are running out of room. The healthcare system can't even hardly support what's here now. This influx of people, I don't think it's responsible of us to keep influxing people, even though they want to come here, and not have the resources that they need in the community. So that's one other piece of why I think that we shouldn't. The traffic count was, again, one day. I saw the man. He was sitting at the corner of Nave and Princeton. I stopped and talked to him. I know who he works for, and I know what he was doing. He was there for one day till 5 p.m., and he counted traffic. He didn't count it in the evenings, on the weekends, when people are running to and from ball games and performances or whatever they're running to and from. And the developer told us at the meeting, oh, well, everybody's going to go off and they're going to go down Princeton, which isn't true because we live in that neighborhood. If we want to go down towards Princeton, we're going to get on the interstate or we're going over towards MedTech. But if we want to go to Science Hill, ETSU, the mall, the Med Center, Jonesboro, that's all, we're going the other way. We're going towards Mount Castle because that's quicker and easier to get over on Rome. You don't have to go down through all those little stoplights. So yes, they're going to cut through our neighborhood. I see that my time is quickly running out. There is a lot of reasons. There are children in our neighborhood that are developmentally delayed. We have elderly people walking, dogs walking. My son rides his scooter all over. We feel safe. We know each other. We know kind of where everybody lives. And if you put 50 more people in there that we don't know and are driving and running through our neighborhood, you're taking our safety out of our hands. And my 3 minutes is pretty much up, but
Thank you, Ms.
That's it.
Eldred.
Yeah, you're on it. Thank you.
Is there a Kimberly Vitito? Oh,
wow.
thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kim Vitito. I'm at 2301 Nave Drive. My concerns kind of have to do with my parents. They live right across that development, and one of the reasons why we moved to this neighborhood was that my kids could see their grandparents very easily. So with any kind of additional traffic, kind of becomes scary. I would hope my kids could run down to their grandparents' house on any given day of the week, really. So adding more people would make that a little bit harder, a little bit questionable. So in the past 5 years that my husband have been in this house, we've seen a lot of growth in the neighborhood, a lot of families. It's been so cool to see all the families come in and walking, running, as everyone's mentioned. But I guess my concern is, I'd like you to consider the growth in the next 5 to 10 years. This is a mature community. It's a beautiful community. But even as, time goes on, have you considered Fairmont and the schools around? Do they have enough for more kids? Can they place 20% more kids or 20% more families moving into those houses that get bought in the future? Is that going to be viable for the schools in the area? Also, another thing that concerned me with this being an R4 under the IBC under 2018, it calls out for this space to be a space for halfway homes, rehab facilities. Would that ever be a possibility? I know we're zoning it for apartments, but is there concern, or would there be a change in the plan that would make those residences change? We all just want a safe community, safe area for our kids. So I would just please consider those recommendations. We just want a safe neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vitito. I have one more person listed to speak to the Nave Drive rezoning question, and that's Kathy Greer, I thought. She'd already been, I'm mistaken.
I'm Kathy Greer. I live across the street from this property. We spoke the other night, and I have to think, I don't know if he's here, but the engineer, he did listen, and that's what I'm asking you all to do. He's done 3 different concepts, and I appreciate, I know he put a lot of work into it. However, when I called the city, the map that we received in the mail, it didn't have the creek on it. We've got 2 creeks. There was going to be houses on top of creeks. That is an issue. I am also a nurse. If you ever had black lung or any respiratory issues, you don't want to live with black mold. That's a big issue. That's going to be an issue with this property. The next thing is, as she talked about, we've had 3 different concepts already presented. How many more are we going to get? Can I trust? My trust is wavering because I've seen so many changes. Yeah, I see the concept you have presented, but like she said, is it going to be a halfway house? Can you change it after this vote? I don't know. I'm not in government. I'm a nurse. This is all new to me. But I don't want to be, if I didn't come out and voice myself and somebody across the street dies or comes with a terminal illness because these were not addressed. I was told in the meeting, this is not applied to this meeting. This is about zoning. It does apply, people, because your decision determines what is built there. And unless we know what is going to be built there, how can you vote? If you don't know all the answers, which I agree, you don't know all the answers. It's too soon. We only got noticed 2 weeks ago. So put it off, appeal it. Do what you do in the government. I don't know. But I have had sleepless nights over this. And the lady that's on the contract is Marcella. She's 94 years old. Marcella owns tons of property in Johnson City. If it's a financial thing, she can sell another property. She's got businesses that are empty. She could sell that. I am taking care of 3 elderly people right now from 85 to 95. My own parents. I know the financial burden. And if that's the cause of why she's having to sell, I understand it. But she had a vision one day of R2. Let's keep it R2.
Thank you, Ms. Greer. All right, we'll move to another topic at this point.
This is a value to make, clarify exactly what our role is. At some point.
Yes.
All right, we have additional topics that people want to comment on.
Excuse me, pardon, I was under the impression that there would be another chance to speak on this.
There will be. That will be when the issue comes before us for action. This is just simply the public comment section of the agenda. The next topic is about development by Landstar Properties. Is Robin Collins here?
Sir.
My name is Robin Collins. I live at 3003 West Walnut. My property abuts this development proposed by Landstar behind my property. I've got two issues I'd like to speak to. First of all would be in regard to the setbacks that have been described to me. According to the plat that I've been provided, there's a 25-foot setback off the rear of my line. That's 7 steps. There's another 25-foot open area behind that to the adjoining property or proposed property behind me. I've actually taken a tape measure off my rear corner pin and marked that off. That's a very small area. Now, in commentary with the planners, I understand that the developer has a choice of either trees being planted as a barrier or a fence of about 6 foot installed. Both of those, in my opinion, are woefully inadequate, both from a safety standpoint and a privacy standpoint, and I would respectfully request that at least an 8-foot fence be considered at a minimum of 25 feet off of our rear line. The other issue I have is in terms of the density of this development. There are 118 lots proposed for this development. Other citizens here have spoken about traffic. In my mind, West Walnut is just not designed, nor has it been, to accommodate this kind of traffic flow. That's at least 118 cars coming off of side streets onto West Walnut. West of me, there's probably a 24 development of apartments. I understand east of me at Burlington, there is a large development proposed. At this point, West Walnut has almost become a racetrack in front of my house. I've approached the police department several times for traffic enforcement. Another 18 homes parked behind me. That time would be caught up in service calls and not traffic enforcement. I would respectfully request that the commission, the developer, reevaluate both the setback restrictions and the density for this development, not only for privacy, security, also for traffic and safety on West Walnut. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Thank you. The next topic someone wants to speak to is about Woodland Grove Subdivision. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to say the first name, Sire Cox. If you'll correct me if I'm wrong, please. I'm sorry, ma'am.
My name is Sear Cox. Pretty
Close.
Like Sears and Roebuck. When I discovered that the Anders Enterprises had sold this, I was horribly shocked. I mean, I bought this house as a forever house for me. I wanted a minimum of 12-foot privacy fence along the rear of this, or alternatively, I would like the lots be much bigger, and I would personally like to buy what abuts my property on West Walnut Street, if that's possible. I can't, nobody has called me back from Landstar. I see this 0.14 acres, 114 acre lots are, that's high density population. That's gonna be a lot of people, a lot of traffic, and there's only one way in and out you know, Woodland Road is proposed as in the entrance, or Woodhill Road is proposed in an entrance, and then this little Cooper Drive, which is basically just a dead end, proposed as the other. And there at least needs to be other ways in and out of this subdivision, I would think, just for the security of the people who are going to live there and for the fire department and other emergency services. We have a lot of wildlife that comes into our yard too. I'm going to really, really, really miss my turkeys and my deer. If there's anything we can do to put up a 12-foot acoustic privacy fence and, around the entire perimeter of this place, that would be great. I don't want to hear the traffic. I've got a great view of Buffalo Mountain. That's why I bought that house. And please, whatever I can do to make this easier. I know it's not going to, I mean, make the lots bigger so there's not such a dense population on 45 acres. Our lots on West Walnut, Mr. Collins, and you'll be hearing from Caleb here in a minute, our lots are over an acre, and that, so I know what .114 acres is. It's nothing. So please consider changing the size of the lots. I don't know who the developer is. I would certainly like to speak to them. I know it's George Smith from Landstar, but I never got any return email or phone call from him. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Thank you.
The last public comment is on Woodland Grove, Mr. Caleb Olson, sir.
I'm just going to get a timer, but I'm sure I'll hear it when my time is up anyway. So, like I said, my name's Caleb Olson. I live at 2845 West Walnut Street. That's on the corner of Carter Cells and West Walnut. And as everyone has spoken before, the road is already very, very dangerous in terms of traffic. The speed limit is 30, but I'm probably the only one who goes 30 or 35. Everybody is going well over that. I have reached out in the past about that intersection, possibly having some sort of barrier guardrail. I don't think that's going to be possible. We've had somebody come into that yard, but also I'm here on behalf of my in-laws who live at 2840. They have the 4 acres butting up to the property that was just sold by the Andrews. They bought that property that they're on now from the Andrews 30 years ago, over 30 years ago. The house is over 100 years old. It is beautiful. The deers come into the yard. The turkeys come into the yard. They have a pool back there. We are very much concerned about, as they mentioned, a very low fence, very, very close proximity to the lots directly behind their house, and what that may mean for people wandering, kids even, it's fine, you know, people need to walk around and enjoy this space, and I understand there's some open spaces there as well, so hopefully they can maximize that. Talking about the traffic in the intersection, and they mentioned the entry points being kind of off of West Walnut, will the right-of-way for my in-laws and the Marshalls who live next to that dirt road at the corner of West Walnut, will that road ever be turned into a main entry point? And if not, is it possible to close that and have it replotted into those 2 properties if they're not going to use it? As you know, the fire department right behind us has been building a very big development there. Tow trucks, or dump trucks, and all kinds of large equipment is in and out of there all day. We have a 2-year-old; she's constantly being woken up by, loud trucks, but also people coming to that stop sign, and then to get going, they very much floor it. And go very fast. So the noise is already a problem, and that's just at 2840. My in-laws who live across the street are very much concerned about the wildlife. They've always heard there's caves back there. I don't know if that's been identified. How will that be built upon if there are caves? And everybody that I've spoken to who's been around here long enough knows that there are caves. Will there be dynamite? I don't know what happens with developing on top of caves and if that's allowed, how that might affect other structures like their pool or their home. Like I said, it's a 100-year-old home. And so those kind of 5 concerns, I guess: traffic, noise, safety. If that road is not going to be used as a main entry point, would it be possible to purchase that or close that road? In the past, I spoke with someone from this commission, and they said that you have to file a paper. Everybody has to agree who is attached to that, who's right-of-way that uses it, and then you can maybe have that rezoned and taken back. So if anyone from Landstar is here, we would love to speak with you about possibly purchasing. My in-laws would love to purchase the land behind them. They have the 4 acres, it would be about another acre. And then, as Ms. Sear spoke about, are these plots going to be 1 unit per? Will they be bigger, wider? The density is a big concern. And so if they're not planning on developing on all of those tiny plots, would they be resold to us at any point? And so thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you, sir. That will close our section on public comment. And I moved to mention to the audience and to the public that the responsibility of this commission is land use. And we're charged to look at land use for the city, for the whole citizenry of Johnson City. And that's our primary responsibility, and that's a charge that we take very seriously. We're a body of volunteers, and we use our best judgment for the good of Johnson City today and into the future. Thank you very much for your public comments. I really appreciate them. I didn't agree with everything I heard, but I welcome you to make your points over and over again. Thank you very much. Any other comments from the commission? All right, we'll move on to our agenda. We have one item under the consent agenda. It's a fairly simple bond release on Cardinal Forest. Does anyone at the commission want to bring that forward for discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I approve for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. Any other comments? All in favor say aye on the consent agenda.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. All right, we'll move to our first item of new business, and this is a topic that I believe Mr. McNamer is going to present to us, please. And I think you have some company from the county.
That'd be correct, Your Chairman. Well, good evening, Commissioners. This is a Washington County text amendment to their zoning resolution. This will look fairly familiar to most of you, as this was brought forth to the Commission in the March meeting. However, after further discussion, we felt that further clarification was needed and would just be useful for everybody to feel more comfortable in making a decision on this matter. I'm going to do a quick run through again since a few commissioners were absent at that last meeting. The first part of this amendment is amending Article 2 of the zoning resolution to add a definition of venue when not associated with agritourism, which is already defined. An event venue is a place of public assembly used for commercial events. Event venues are subject to a use agreement between a private group or individual and the venue owner. The venue owner may or may not charge a fee for the use of this venue. Permitted uses of venue. This will go into the B3 General Business District with no further requirements. For the A1 General Agriculture District, this will be a permitted use upon review, subject to the following standards. Standards 1, 2, and 6 will give a general overview of what the site looks like, being 2.5 acres. The operator living on site in a separate dwelling unit, and the accessory structure on site being used for the venue. Some other, no concerts in the A1. The operator is responsible for the logbook, keeping it at 75 attendees. During the week, these will conclude at 9 p.m. During the weekend, 10 p.m. 7 and 8 just point to other parts of the code considering, or to point to parking, landscaping, setbacks, other land regulations there. After further discussion, we felt that there were some questions that were just unresolved, most of which the reason for this and why exactly are we doing this. Discussion about current uses that are already operating in the county. I want to make it clear that right now this is not a permitted use, therefore in violation of the zoning code. So without a definition for venue, any currently operating venue is under violation and therefore would have to close. Also, we talked a little bit about the possible infringement on private events. Just from the definition, I feel like I didn't spell this out clearly in the last presentation, but public assembly used for commercial events. So this is something that's being planned, is being advertised and whether there's a fee or not. This is a commercial activity. Lastly, all the requirements, just specifically being set forth for the A1 general agriculture, since that is a lower impact use and this is going to be permitted, we feel it necessary to have some more regulation and a bit more scrutiny on some of these. This will also not affect any of the current uses operating under the agritourism definition. This will be simply in addition to that those are not falling under agritourism can now operate. So the main difference here is an agritourism activity. It will be done on a farm or a ranch dealing with any of the following list here. Also, the site would have to be eligible for Greenbelt classification. So that's another requirement having to meet. Revisiting the recommendation and taking into account some additional information. In order to accommodate this use, the Washington County zoning resolution must be amended to add a new definition for venue in Article 2 for the ability to operate in the proposed districts provided the meeting of minimum requirements, Article 6. The rationale behind these standards is to allow consideration by the Board of Zoning Appeals to protect surrounding properties in the A1 district. Washington County Planning Commission has recommended approval, and they have given us consent and given consent of Washington County Planning Director Angie Charles to be present at this meeting for reconsideration. Staff would recommend approval of this text amendment. If you have any further questions, Angie Charles can definitely answer those.
Thank you very much. Ms. Charles, are you here? Oh, there you are. I'd lost you. I just wanted to make sure that the commission knew you were here and knew where you were. Any other questions for staff about this? I think we had some questions before.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions for Angie. Hey, hello.
Welcome, Angie.
Yes, thank you so much for being here.
Ms. Charles.
Thank
And
you so much. Appreciate
Ms. Charles, it must be nice representing the best county in the state, Washington County.
It is
So
the
that's
best
great.
county, yes, sir.
And so one of the things I was wondering is that if this is enacted, it's basically claiming that none of the venues right now are operating under kind of like a permitted use. And so I was wondering why we're creating this, permit anyways in the first place. There's probably lots of different kind of business activities in the county. Why is this one in particular kind of getting carved out and kind of being kind of shined, I guess, kind of special to create their own kind of own venue?
That's an excellent question. Thank you.
Yes.
The text amendment was generated from a citizen. So this was not a staff-initiated text amendment request. We have a business that we received a complaint on, and our code enforcement went out, found a business to be operating on a property that was unpermitted. The agro-tourism umbrella that was referenced in the definition for this and in the other slide you saw has to do with those larger acreage operations that you might think of that have multiple buildings on the properties. They'll have multiple barns to use, different things. But in this instance, this was generated by a venue that opened up on a property. Someone had bought a house, it had a barn on it. They didn't want a farm, so they thought the barn would be the perfect place to have weddings. And so that's, a neighbor complained, and that's how we came to be. So we advised them they were in violation of the zoning code, and that to bring the property into conformance, they had to close their business. So their request was, can we propose a text amendment for consideration to allow this use in the county on properties such as this? So we looked at it, did some research in some other counties across the state and then some counties outside of the state to come up with the criteria that we did for the A1. What you may not know is that the majority of Washington County is zoned A1. So where there's not much of it in the city, that's the majority of what we have. So when we looked at this, when we allow a new use in our zoning code, we're looking at something that could be applicable one side of the county to the other. So we wanted to be careful that we didn't allow a use that could cause too much of an infringement or impose too much on a neighboring adjoining property. So we looked at things like lot size, our site plan requirements, the size of the events. And we found wording from other places that included, I think you saw it in the criteria, operating inside an enclosed structure, or not past a certain time, or not over so many people, those types of things, and those, or may not charge a fee. And that one was kind of interesting. We thought about leaving that in, taking it out, and other jurisdictions had advised that they had run into issues with people saying, well, we just allowed so-and-so to use our property for this event. We weren't charging them a fee, so we're not really a venue. So we tried to learn from what other communities had gone through and build on that. So that's kind of how it came to be. That's a long
Yeah.
answer to your
Oh,
question.
no, that's perfect. I appreciate that.
But that's also why that criteria is there for the A1.
I see. A kind of a follow-up question to that. I've been to so many nice venues in
Yes.
Washington County,
Yes.
and they're beautiful and they're run really well.
Yes.
Some of them have been over, 70 people. And so I know that, I guess some of those would have to kind of limit that based on that criteria.
The ones you're referring to may not be part of this requirement. They might fall under the agritourism.
Gotcha. And I guess, do we know how many venues would have to close if this would, do we have an idea of like, there's 20 venues in the county and like 10 fall outside of this and 10 fall in? Do we understand that?
We actually don't. We don't have that number.
Okay.
Where we just have one code enforcement officer for our entire county, we are a complaint-based office. So when we receive a complaint, we investigate it. If we don't receive a complaint, we may not know
Yeah.
you're there. So I would be hesitant to speculate
I
how many
see.
could be out there.
Well, that could cause a little bit of a problem, I guess,
So-
if 15 of the 20 venues for weddings fall outside of this amendment. And then all
There's-
of them would have to, I guess, kind of go through ratification processes.
If they fell under this criteria, if they were those smaller, non-greenbelt type properties, the ones that we are predominantly aware of are all agritourism and all fall under that category.
So you see a lot
And they'd
of-
be protective.
Okay,
Yes.
so you see a lot of them using kind of the green belt to put like a vineyard on there, or like, so they could put up like a 6-string, wine kind of thing and call it a vineyard and kind of fall under the agriculture kind of coverage?
That's right. There's it's hard, it's difficult for farmers these days especially. So the state gives those protections. If there's ways you can bring people to your working farm, bring people to your active farm and help promote those activities, then
Yeah.
it's allowed.
Gotcha. One of the other things I thought was interesting was the time frame. I've been to a lot of weddings that went from like 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and then they've stopped it at 10 o'clock. What was kind of the reasoning behind that?
That was just impact on neighbors. That was thought to be kind of a quote, comfortable time
Yeah.
frame if you've got cars exiting, entering, any type of movement going on that property, that you're not going to disrupt a
I see.
typical pattern of behavior at a neighbor's property.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my hands around the same thing that Commissioner Oceanbine is. So under and I apologize for not having done this research, but so under the agribusiness category, are you familiar with the barn in Boones Creek?
The barn in Boones Creek.
It's a venue.
In the city,
I
the
think
falls?
it is. I think it is in the
Boone
city.
Falls.
And there's two, Waterstone. Is it in the city? Are you familiar with Waterstone?
I'm not familiar with Waterstone, but
Reed?
the falls, I believe, is in the city limits.
The Maples, are you familiar with the Maples? Okay.
No, sir.
I guess I'm trying to get the distinction between those types of facilities, which I think pretty much serve our community very well, but they have neighbors. I mean, they have residences at least nearby to them. How we provide for those folks and not penalize them, yet make sure we protect the folks you're trying to protect.
Of course.
So can you give me maybe 3 or 4 points of what constitutes agribusiness, a venue under that agribusiness category?
Agritourism.
Sure.
The agritourism category.
Excuse me, agritourism.
Mr.
Yes.
Could you come back and bring that slide up, please, again? There you go.
This one?
That one right there.
I missed that.
Thank you. Yes, we have agritourism defined in our zoning code, and it just refers back to the state definition and requirements for agritourism. So the one thing that really is key is being eligible for greenbelt classification. And that goes back to that acreage So you have to have a minimum acreage to fall under that. So for instance, there's a venue, and I'm blanking on the name at the moment, on Cherokee Road that would fall under that. There's a venue off of John France Road that would fall under the agritourism. There's one in Gray, I believe it's Sid Martin Road, that would fall under the agritourism. So your larger ones would fall under that umbrella. The ones that you have in the city, this code would not be applicable to. They would be applicable to your zoning code. And then if there are any that are located in B3 districts in the county, this would allow that as a permitted use in the B3 as well. It's just a use that's not listed in our code at all. It's always fallen under the agritourism umbrella. We've just recently seen people wanting to use smaller lots for these venues. Code's a living thing, and we have to keep amending it and adding to it as new things come along. And so this is just the first that has come up in a little while.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Chris?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know, it says that this has been approved by the Washington County Planning Commission after we had our last meeting. And I noticed in the paper that it said they were going to table what they were discussing considering this. Is that correct?
The Washington County Planning Commission did recommend approval. We brought it to you last month. We discussed it at our last meeting, and I advised them of your action, and we talked about that, and we talked about Jonesboro's commission meeting as well. And the request was to come back because we felt like there were unanswered questions. So we wanted to present them again. We wanted to be able to give you that information. Our commission didn't want to move forward, our planning commission didn't want to move forward to county commission thinking that there wasn't the full amount of information out there. We wanted to know that if your decision to either recommend approval or to deny was based on as much information as we could give you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I thought I heard another. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Charles. Just a few quick questions. On one of the allowed venues subject to following standards, it says no concert events shall take place.
Yes.
You guys have a definition for concert? Because if someone's out there playing music, does that define a concert?
It is not defined.
Okay.
No, sir.
And then another, I think, section 3 says the owner-operator shall keep a log book of attendees. Did you guys want that to be a shall? Is that a, they must keep a log book of attendees? It just seems like they can't, it seems like it's a can. Doesn't mean that they will.
The thought behind that was keeping people a little more truthful on the number of attendees at their events.
Okay.
If they thought that there was somebody that might come along and look at it, or the Board of Zoning Appeals might ask to see that.
Okay. You may well consider changing that to a must, than a shall. That's just a recommendation. And then my last question, it sounds like, and I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I apologize. I'm trying to get my head around the problem that we're trying to fix here. But if the complaints were around noise, people having these events and these smaller these venues on small plots of land, do you guys have a sound or a noise ordinance you could have implemented to bring them under compliance that way instead of going this way?
Sure. The county does not have a noise ordinance. So the complaint that we received was from an event at this venue that went later than that one night.
Yeah.
The owners themselves expressed concern over that event before they knew a complaint came in.
Yeah.
They weren't happy with that. They had small children, and they didn't know it was going to go that late, and they weren't happy.
Yeah.
So they revised their business model after that point to make sure their events ended by that point, by that time in the evening. So we took that and used it.
Yeah. I think Commissioner, Whitfield brings up a good point. If I wanted to, and that's why people live in the county, so they can be loud and do what they want to. So, currently, you could open a gun range up in the county on your land, right? And shoot guns at 2 a.m. in the morning, but you couldn't have your wedding go until 11.
Correct.
And so I fully support, knowing where these venues are, making sure that they're registered with you all. I think some of the requirements in here are a little too too tight for me to get over. Particularly, they shall operate entirely within the enclosed accessory structure. I know that I've been to some where, you get to go in the old home and like the people are changing in some of the bedrooms, and then like it's kind of attached where the wedding venue is to that structure. And so I can think of already multiple places where, they wouldn't fall into this. So I would like to know, with the passage of this, how many people and how many businesses are we already restricting? So I totally support what you're doing. I think this language is just too strict for me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. I've been to a lot of these venues throughout the county, and I understand the need for it, particularly from a sound ordinance. If you're the neighbor, you don't want them to be over there playing music till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, but it does seem really restrictive.
All right, any other questions for
Yeah,
staff?
I would like to ask a question. This has been brought to us before, correct?
It was here last month.
And there hasn't been any changes so far?
I believe that is correct.
So
Correct.
It's pretty much the same thing we've seen before.
Correct, yes, sir.
I think after what I'm hearing tonight, I suggest that we pull this, not necessarily vote it down, but pull it to maybe possibly incorporate some of the things that we would like to see and have it come back at a later date.
Well,
if
I
possible.
don't think, I'm not sure that it's appropriate for us to rewrite this. This is being brought before us.
Okay.
By the county.
Fair enough.
And I think we can give some suggestions. I don't think it's kosher, I don't think it's appropriate for us to try to rewrite the text amendment proposal that's pending in the county. I think what we can do is approve with some suggestions. We can disapprove with reason, with cause, but I don't think I want us to get into the place where we're rewriting their proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and just to echo that, Mr. Chairman, I think a
Yeah.
lot of the questions that were.
Excuse me?
A lot of the questions that were unanswered at the last meeting, or a lot of the reasons why it was
Hold on just a second.
failed. and-
We need to hold one question at a time, please.
Yeah. I believe that a lot of the questions that surfaced that caused it to fail at the last meeting have been answered too.
Yes. All right, did I have a question over here? Okay. Well, I do feel.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I just have one more question for the
Yes, sir.
staff. Ms. Charles, I guess my next question is, if someone violates this, say they have 76 people or the music's still going at 11 o'clock, what are the repercussions? Because it seems easier that if you guys had a noise ordinance, police can come out, shut it down, everyone go home. If someone violates a zoning code at 11 o'clock at night, I'm not sure it'd have the same teeth. So that's my question.
Okay, thank you. If we've received complaints that are pertaining to zoning that happen after hours, the sheriff's office will notify our office of that the next morning.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it's a code infraction. So
Yes, sir.
it gets addressed as a code infraction.
Yes, sir.
The following day.
All right, I want to open the floor for public comment. Is anyone here to speak to the question? All right, seeing none, I'll close the floor. So now, I think if there's no other questions for staff, I think the question now is in our hand.
I think Vice Mayor Murphy makes a good point, because I believe the article said that there might be some changes coming to it, because I think what they're trying to do is good, but I think there's some work that needs to be done with the language before I feel like I could put my name on it to support it. So I think you're right on, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I just felt that seeing the same exact thing not too long ago, and it wasn't approved, and I appreciate some clarification that has been brought forward today, and I've had several correspondence as well since our last time we've seen this, but I think that there needs to be some incorporation of some of the things we suggest based on what I'm hearing tonight, and things that I thought as to reasons why I didn't support it before. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I just think it needs massaging a little bit.
Yeah. Other comments? Discussion? So I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I move, Mr. Chairman, I move that we, not sure what the right word is.
We recommend approval.
No, we recommend disapproval.
We recommend
But we don't approve it.
that we recommend it not be approved as written. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Thanks.
So you making a motion
Yes,
that
sir.
we decline to recommend approval at the county level of the text amendment as presented. Okay, I have a second.
Second.
All right, let's discuss that proposal, that motion.
I think it's just too restrictive, and at least the experience I've had with the venues that I think mostly are in Johnson City, they'd be out of business.
Yeah. I'd like to see.
And
Yeah.
by and large, they're good, productive, valuable venues for our community.
Yeah, and I do, honor the county for trying to address the citizens' concern. I think that's awesome. When I've dealt with concerns on boards before, I will say, I think a lot of times they bring, annual sheriff data, call volume of such. We've had 20 volume calls on this type of issue, and it sounds like we're just at one on this that they know of. So I think that would help their case in the future on this.
Any other comments?
I guess, Chairman, my question is, and this is more of a statute question, should it be easier to recommend disapproval, or should we just put it up for approval and then see if it gets voted down?
Well, the motion is to, I may have to ask our parliamentarian. The motion, as I understand it, is that the motion is to not recommend approval at the county of this text amendment as proposed.
I believe it was a motion to recommend denial.
Correct.
It's a motion to recommend denial to the Washington County Commission to amend the Washington County Zoning Code resolution regarding venues.
Do you understand it that way?
I do. What that means is a voice or a vote for yes means that we deny it.
Everybody understands that?
Yes, if you're voting yes, you're voting for denial.
Okay.
Recommend denial.
Any other discussion? I call the question. Ms. Lawrence, please call the roll.
Okay. Commissioner Aldridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey.
No.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton.
No.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbottom.
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
No.
Motion for denial has carried.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, now our next item on the agenda is Mr. McNamers again. It's a Washington County rezoning request.
All right. Next item is staying with the Washington County here. We're going to do a rezoning at 785 Herb Hodge Road. The proposal is to rezone 9.8 acres from A1 General Agriculture to A3 Agriculture Business to accommodate development of a recreational vehicle park. I'll refer to that as RV Park for the rest of the presentation. Property is in Washington County and would meet regulations within their zoning resolution. And there's the site there. You can see kind of its unique placement. So this is on the very outskirts of our planning region. I believe Austin Springs is just a little bit southwest of here, nearing the edge of our planning region, however. The entire surrounding zoning is A1 General Agriculture. Future land use map calls for agriculture. There's not a distinction in the land use map for A1, 2, or 3. It's just agriculture as one. So this would not go against that rezoning. I think it's important to look at the definition of what A3 agriculture business is for the purpose of this. The intent of this district is to provide for businesses that locate in rural areas. This district is designed for businesses that would normally locate near agriculture activities, natural resources, etc., associated with rural areas. Obviously, this is a recreational vehicle park. Other similar uses, such as like a campground, obviously they're going to locate close to natural resources in this case. A little bit about the subject site. Right now, it's known as the old Riverstone Campground. It's non-operational. After the previous owner had some health issues and was forced to close, they lost their non-conforming status as a campground. We do have a developer that is proposing to reintroduce the idea, and this time be a recreational vehicle park. And they would need to get the rezoning to reinforce that use. So non-operational campground at the moment. It does have a gated entryway, a small gravel path that would be extended eventually, bathhouse, covered pavilion, boat ramp, everything you see at a campground essentially. It's not served by water or sewer, so it's running off of a water well for that. That's important. The surrounding area has about 2,000 feet of shoreline on the Watauga River, and Hodge Island, as you can see in the aerial view here, that's owned by TVA and that's open to the public. That fairly narrow channel, the property line is on the shoreline. That varies anywhere from 30 to 100 feet away from where the property and the shoreline would be. Across from Herbod Road to what would be north of this property is, you can see, a very steep incline there. I'll talk about that here in a bit. And then the uniqueness of how it kind of narrows out towards the edge leaves really no possibility of development. As you can see, Herb Hodge gets so close on each side of the property there. Just looking at the street view, so this is what Herb Hodge would look like at the entrance. You can see pretty much undevelopable there, such a steep slope, and that's reinforced by the contours map there. So since this is in the county, they're not required to have a concept plan. I have spoken with the developer to get as much information to present tonight as I could. So obviously we know this will be an RV park. Maximum of 18 spaces. However, this would be constructed 4 to 5 spaces per phase, so about 4 phases. This use could utilize and improve on the current amenities with it being a previous campground. Extension and paving of the drive, so not having it be a gravel path anymore, especially with heavy RVs. We'd like to see that paved. And extending that to cover more of the land. Minimal lighting improvements just along the roadway and the drives and with the spaces. Demolition of the current bathhouse and possible development of a new laundry facility that would be served by the existing well. I think it's important to also note that this entire site is in the 1% floodplain. So there's no real incentive for any permanent buildings or large facilities to go here, especially with the narrow lot, a lot of difficulties. So this will be served by a septic system. Developer has received a TDEC permit for the first phase of the 4 to 5 units. TDEC has also said that a purification or filtration system will be needed for the well to be able to serve the customers here. It's also been in talks with the Army Corps of Engineers and Highland Engineering about mapping the soil and possible stormwater system. Staff would recommend approval of this rezoning, as that I stated before, the landscape and just the odd positioning of this lot really does not pose a threat to any other property with a river and a steep slope being on one side and the other. The requested zoning would carry on the historical use of what the site used to be, and the limitations of the site provide very few alternatives, just with the existence of the floodplain and being right on the water.
All right, questions for staff? Any questions?
They plan to have people staying overnight there, correct?
Yeah, for an RV park, I
Yeah.
believe they plan on having it be somewhat like monthly to seasonal. I believe there's a 180-day limit.
Yeah.
So kind of come out for the summer. Yeah. And the developer's present.
I did have one
somewhere.
question. For the sewer treatment, is it one master sewer septic system, or would it be
They're
stepped
going
out
to have to get a
several?
TDEC permit for each phase.
For each, so each phase might have its own septic treatment system?
That
The developer might have some.
That I do not know. I just know that they would have to go through the permit
Okay.
process.
And
each
then the
time.
water will have to be, it has been evaluated by TDEC, and there's gonna have to be some improvements to make potable water.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, the TDEC stuff will also include the purification system for the well.
Other questions for staff? All right. Mr. McNamara, thank you very much. I'll open the floor for public comment. Does anyone have any comments in favor or against this proposal? Is the developer here? Thank you, sir. Any questions for the developer?
Just one question regarding the people in the RVs there. When I drove out there, it's so close to the water line, people sleeping there at night. Is there going to be any kind of alert system if, if a flood does happen for those individuals there so close to the water? That of course doesn't pertain to the vote that we're doing today. Is just interested to see what you had to say about that.
Something I really thought about, but it's something that would not be hard to.
I see. I see. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I think I
Yes.
can probably, sorry,
Yeah.
I can probably help answer that question. That's a tailwater too. There's a dam upstream that the flow is regulated in the channel.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for investing in our community,
Yeah.
for proposing to invest.
That's great.
Any other questions or discussion amongst us? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, Chairman.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve this rezoning at 785 Herb Hodge Road, and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Lawrence, please call the roll.
Commissioner Aldridge. Yes. Commissioner Bailey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine.
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
Motion for approval has carried.
Thank you very much, everyone. All right, our next item on the agenda is the rezoning at Princeton Road and Nave. Mr. McNamara, you're up.
All right, our next item, and I believe the reason most of us are here tonight, the rezoning on 0 Princeton Road. Proposal is to rezone 2.7 acres from I-1 light industrial, R2 low-density residential, and R5 high-density residential to R4 to accommodate the development of townhomes. The way I like to think about this is we're downzoning the R5 portion and then expanding it to cover the rest of the lot. So like I mentioned, the current zoning is split 3 ways. 2 levels of residential and then the back half being industrial. Across Princeton to the west, we have the medical services district, which also extends to the south. Industrial to the north, that's a self-storage facility up there. And then as you go east on Nave, it is all R2 low-density residential. For the land use, this has been historically vacant. You can see that self-storage is classified as commercial on the land use map, and then once again across the street, all medical services, and there's a variety, allergists, just different medical uses, doctor's office, health. Now you can see that those 3 lots directly to the south labeled medical, 2 of them are labeled as single family, and then the one in the middle is, I believe, inoperational. I've seen some past things about a dentist possibly being there. There's a sign in disrepair about a sort of beauty salon, but that would be the only one that would be in conformance to that MS1 district there. The future land use map actually calls for commercial and splits this site in half, with the R2 remaining on the side, a little bit of industrial in there, and then commercial along the Princeton frontage. Our main takeaway from this is that this future land use map is calling for a transitional zone for the R2. Specifically commercial. However, there is no commercial on that frontage at this time, so. Since I noted that this lot has been historically vacant, I felt it necessary to dive deeper into exactly what the rezoning has looked like over the years here. The adoption of the code in 1972 labeled this entire frontage from Cressinger extending up past Nave as R5. And that was done in 72, so we do not have any zoning before that, and that's what the zoning was intended to be. I'll go over a couple Planning Commission meeting decisions about this area. First of all, request number 183 was heard by the Planning Commission June 9th, 1981. This was a request to rezone most of this R5 frontage of Princeton to B4. The Planning Commission denied this request and labeled B4 as an inappropriate buffer with the abutting R2 directly behind it. And they also cited that the lack of commercial development along this area, we don't need B4. The request 310 was heard November 10th, 1987. It's important, I'll preface this, that this meeting predated MS1 and RO2. So RO1 was essentially serving as office medical until they ended up splitting those off and creating more specific designations. So you can see where the MS1 is today. There's a big block of RO1. This request brought forth one to expand the RO1 to the eastern side of Princeton Road. This was also denied. Once again, concerns for improper buffer for the R2 facing Princeton Road, and that the medical services should stay to the west of Princeton. Do one more request here, 189, heard by the Planning Commission on July 14th, 1981. This essentially took all the R5 out and expanded the existing R2 up to Princeton. Once again, this was denied. Once again, stating the Planning Commission prefers a transitional zone from the MS1 and the Collector Road to the R2 farther off the Princeton frontage. So in these three cases, we can see past planning decisions have time and time and again favored higher density residential as a appropriate transitional zone. Just a little bit more background. This is the oldest map I could find. The original subdivision in this neighborhood that created homes along Nave Drive, Nave Acres, from 1958. When this map was used, this essentially creates what you see in the bottom left corner. That's what created this lot, essentially. Current conditions of the site, there's a slight downward slope from the east property line going down towards Princeton Road. You can see the northern and western sides of the property are a bit more vegetated, and closer to Princeton Road, which would be on the west side of the property, there's an existing stream that runs underneath Nave through a culvert and comes out and runs through those trees. Obviously, you cannot see it with the coverage there. Contours map, slight downhill slope, nothing that would deter any development though. This is our concept plan. The proposed zoning is R4. R4 would permit 14 units per acre. For this specific site, it'd be 37.8. However, this concept plan depicts 24 units divided into 4 structures. If this concept plan and this rezoning was approved tonight, they would be bound to 24 structures, and they could not add any without going through the Planning Commission once again and getting a concept plan amendment. There's an entryway on the south side of the property off of Nave Drive. You can see just outside of the creek buffer. There's one garage and one driveway parking space. Okay, thank you. Right here is the entryway. You can see this little square inside is representing a garage parking space, and then a driveway parking space. After discussion with neighborhood concern and other considerations, we decided it was necessary to have some overflow parking spaces. Even though with 24 units, you would be required 2 spots per unit at 48. They would have met requirements with just driveway and garage spaces. However, to address some concerns, they've added additional 11 spaces for maybe miscellaneous visitors, delivery vehicles, maintenance, anything. There will be a new sidewalk along the Nave Drive frontage that will connect to the existing sidewalk on Princeton Road that runs along the east side of that. There will be a type 1 buffer yard where this property directly abuts. You can see 2314 in the bottom right hand there. That will be a 15-foot buffer with 10 type 1 evergreens every 100 feet. It's about 150 to 60 feet, so a bit more than that. They've also extended this buffer, not required, but they have extended it once again to cover some of the neighborhood concern. So you can see where the units are close along Nave, and this would be a single family residence here. They've also extended this buffer to further screen this from the neighborhood and directly across the street, the neighbors. A landscape yard would be required on both frontages. So you'd have a 10-foot landscape yard on public street frontages. The buffer would suffice this landscape yard as well. There will be a new stormwater pond. You can see right about here, due to the increase of the impervious area with the new streets, the new pavement, that would be required, which is depicted right there. As well as keeping a 30-foot buffer on each side. Pretty much this entire creek side of the property undisturbed, therefore not even putting ourselves in a position to arise more issues with environment and preserving this creek. There's also a screened dumpster up here and a mail kiosk to keep trash and mail services on the site. For utilities, water and sewer are available, have been determined adequate for the development. Travis is here for water and sewer if you have any further questions on that. Traffic analysis was done to assess the development's impact on the surrounding streets. There have been no unreasonable impacts found for this study. Anthony Todd is here from traffic. He can explain more of the details and specifics about that study. We've talked about some concerns with the schools. There's a bus stop for any possible families moving into this development. With children, there is a bus stop on the corner of Princeton and Nave that can be utilized if needed, and that's per the Director of Transit. We've also talked to the Johnson City School Superintendent, sent him the concept plan, and he sees this development causing no capacity issues at Fairmont Elementary or Indian Trail Middle School. The neighborhood meeting was held last Wednesday. We had 27 attendees, some of which living on Nave Drive. I've also received multiple phone calls and multiple emails and letters and documents, which I've read over all of them, and I kind of summarized everything. So this is not only just the neighborhood meeting, this is all the concerns I've tried to summarize into one slide here. First of which is the entrance location being on Nave Drive and not Princeton. The engineer and creator of the concept plans, Todd Wood, can give you a bit more detail on the process about that and dealing with the ARAP and going through TDEC due to the existence of the creek. Increased traffic, I would say, is the number one concern, as well as the legitimacy of the traffic analysis that was performed, specifically with the congestion possibility at the intersection of Princeton Road and Nave Drive. Also, the concern of cut-through traffic to go along Nave Drive, down Kipping, and connect to Mount Castle. These have also been directly linked to questions about pedestrian safety on this road. We did receive the complaints and the concerns of not enough parking spaces. Like I said, the concept plan was updated to include 11 more than required. The number of units and fire truck accessibility to these units. This concept plan has been reviewed and approved by Lori Ratliff from the fire department, and there's also a fire hydrant on the corner of Princeton and Nave too. What is the price of these units and how will this have effect on property values? Once again, tonight we're making a land use decision, and this is somewhat out of our scope at this moment. The actual operation of the development, whether these will be short, long-term rentals or owned or Section 8 housing, we've been informed by the developer that they're planning on selling these units, and they'll be owned and be overseen by an HOA. I've also received a lot of concern and confusion with the International Building Code R4 section. The International Building Code does not set standards on where things are built. It sets a standard in the section of how things are built. It's an occupancy classification, and it does not say that we're concerned with the zoning code and what our R4 says in Johnson City zoning code. Concerns about the character of the surrounding neighborhood, causing increased crime, noise, and lighting. What kind of people are buying these, and can we restrict what kind of people are buying these? The lack of green space or the amount of green space that's depicted on the concept plan. The location of the dumpster. We've been informed that there is a dry creek bed on the northern portion of the property, and there is a possibility that this may flood the dumpster location. This will be assessed in the site approval process if it makes it that far, more with Public Works. The existing stream, or skipped over, the dumpster will be screened to screening standards of the zoning code and gated to deter from dumpster diving. The existing stream running under Nave Drive, had questions if the culvert is of adequate size and will this cause flood risk. Once again, this will be something that's further assessed by Public Works if we move forward. I already addressed the schools with the bus stops are adequate and capacity has been adequate per Director of Transit and Johnson City Schools Superintendent. Construction and the noise of the building process. It is without of our scope tonight to find out what these structures look like, what materials they're using, what siding they're using, if they're going to be natural gas, how are they going to be heated and cooled. That's out of our scope. We're focused on land use right now. We're getting very specific in that. Travis can give a little bit more explanation about the surrounding property's water pressure. And through this whole process, I'd say it's a fair assumption that, or a fair statement, that there's been an overarching distrust of the developer and their ability to develop this site and maintain it properly, as well as some distaste in the public notification process that we send letters for rezoning. That's the 200-foot range for letters from this site. That's state statute, and we treat all rezoning cases exactly the same. The moment that we vary from that statute is the moment that we begin to show favoritism for projects, and that is not something we want to do. With that all being said, staff would recommend approval of this rezoning based on the first fact being that this land is essentially undevelopable right now with 3 zones. And I believe it's a goal of the city and for planning to have one use per one lot and to find some zoning conformance to be able to develop each lot. The rezoning would not have an unreasonable impact on the surrounding community. We're retaining the character of Nave Drive by retaining the residential status and use of this street. The proposal maximizes the use of the land without disturbing the existing stream. This was something that was stressed very frequently in updates and creations of concept plans with Public Works. We do not want any environmental issues. Todd Wood, the creator of these, has done a very good job in making sure that this is adequate for environmental and Public Works concerns. The R4 district would provide a transitional zone between the MS1 west of Princeton and the R2 to the east going down Nave Drive away from Princeton. There are already high-density residential developments that are on the frontage of Princeton that are already R5. As I mentioned, that's R5 went in there when the code was adopted in 1972, and that's how some of them have already developed. And R4 would be an adequate transitional zone between the collector road and a higher impact use of MS1 to the abutting R2 to the east. Lastly, the rezoning requests to eliminate higher density residential along Princeton Road have been denied by Planning Commission in the past on the basis that commercial and low density residential uses would be inappropriate. That also goes for the medical and office uses that they did not rule in favor of. Just in the 3 cases that I presented tonight, there's many more. These were just the easiest to see as they dealt with the frontage. Every time a rezoning has come to the commission's attention on this side of Princeton, the commission has ruled in favor of high-density residential time and again, whether that was commercial, whether that was office, whether that was extending the R2 out the other way. With that being said, just to get an overview here, you can see the 2 developments down there of R5 and then RP3 came in 2006. Our site is up there in R5. Essentially, making this R4 would mirror what we have with Lakeview, where we have Collector Road, R4, R2 behind it. That's standard zoning practice. Go from higher and more impactful uses, and you grade your way down into the lower uses of what would be R2 in this case. That's all I have for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McNaber. You've done a lot of work researching this, and I appreciate the history lesson. Thank you so much. Questions for staff for Mr. McNaber?
Do I understand correctly that there's been an iteration between the neighbors and the developer as far as comments and the developer responding with changes in his proposed plan?
Yes. So the neighborhood meeting was Wednesday. We received the updated concept plan from Todd on Friday morning.
But that's one step, if you will. In other words, one set of input from the citizens.
Yes, and I've also been providing him with input. The parking was put in, as I mentioned, they already met parking regulations. However, with what I've been receiving over the phone, over email, just talking to people, I've been giving him input as well. That's where the parking started to come in, and then after the neighborhood meeting, we even beefed up the parking a bit more. But we're on the 4th iteration, and we've addressed all the departments now and have reviewed this, and also had the time to meet with all the neighbors and summarize everything up and put our final concept plan forward.
I do also want to reflect again, this is a binding concept plan.
They will be bound to 24 units, and any major change cannot be made, such as the entryway moving, adding units, or completely refiguring the entire
So
site.
this is fixed unless it comes back before us again?
Yes, if they want to make a concept plan amendment, it would have to come before you again.
Will you go over the buffer requirements again? Because I thought you said every 100 feet? And surely that's not correct.
10 trees per 100 feet.
10 trees, okay.
My apologies, yeah.
Well, that was
But
my-
that specific buffer is about 150 to 160. Also, the buffer in front, the portion, this is the required buffer. This buffer was made after comments at the neighborhood meeting. This is not a required buffer. This is the developer and Todd talking and trying to fix a problem that the neighbors had brought to their attention.
So that's not required because the road separates, okay.
But the rest of this would be landscaped as well. And we'd be in talking, since this is wooded, we'd be in conversation with City Forester Pat Walding about natural landscaping and what else needs to be done.
Chairman, Mr. McNamara, another question I have for you is, in essence, we're downzoning this from an R5 to an R4. Correct. We're expanding it to the industrial area, but it's gonna be downzoned.
Yeah.
Currently, right now, how many units could they put in there as it is right now? I'm not sure if everyone can hear. It's R5, isn't that 22?
22
units per acre.
I'd assume that's, the R5 portion of this is pretty much undevelopable with the creek running right through it.
Okay.
I'd assume you could be on the generous side and say that's 1 acre and they could fit 22. I don't think they would meet setbacks or any public works requirements.
Thank you.
So is it really a fact that this property is not developable with its split zone today? Is that a fact?
That's not the proposal. So we have to.
Yeah, it's effectively undevelopable, I guess. Even with the R2 piece?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be able to, I guess you've got to develop the R2 and stick a house on
You-
R2.
Yeah,
So that'll be it.
if the buyer wanted to buy it and stick one house on that piece, they'd have to meet all setbacks, but by that same logic, they could put a factory on the back half because it's I-1 or I-2.
Yeah.
I do want to ask a question, and I'll start with you, Mr. McNamara, if there's somebody else from the city who's better addressed this position to answer this question. Would you consider this to be a low-cost infrastructure for the city to support development of this, a medium cost or a high-cost infrastructure cost for the city's, the load that the city's going to invest in developing this property as it's proposed?
I think it's probably a zero cost. As far as the city's
Water
concerned,
and sewer
it's
here?
zero cost.
Is water and sewer here? Travis, is it going to cost the city to support development of this property as it's proposed?
I feel like you're asking a question that would be more appropriate for an annexation, honestly, with the cost of.
Well, where I'm going
cost
with
to
this
extend
question
services
is,
and that sort of thing.
if we can't see fit to make arrangements to put residential properties on a piece of property like this, as close to the core as it is, where the city very efficiently uses its existing resources.
I think I understand your question better now. This is an excellent example of an infill project.
this is
Where
classic.
we're not going out into the county and the far reaches, annexing, and then having the cost of extending services. This
Having
has been-
huge cost of extending services
The
to
past
long reach.
Correct. The past comp plan, possibly, past comp plan, the current bridge plan has specific goals that cite the need for infill development on identifying parcels that are within the city. Of course, we receive requests when developers bring requests forth, and we have to determine if it's an appropriate land use. But infill opportunities sometimes are far and in between, and particularly with multifamily, where are they going? Are they going in the middle of a single-family district? Are they on the outskirts, like in this case, on a collector road? So, to answer your question that way and continue to stick with the land use, it's an infill property where we're not burdened of extending services to territory we annex in the county.
It's not the extension of new service.
And I'll In most cases.
To answer your question, Mr. Chairman, as best I can, water and sewer are currently available to the property. We would just be making connections.
So you're not having to install new infrastructure?
No new lift station, no booster station. We rehabilitated the sewer line in Princeton within the last few years. We actually upgraded the water line on Nave Drive in 2021. So we're in a very good position to provide service to this property.
So the implication is the future tax value of developed property will be significant to the city at very little cost to the city.
From a water sewer standpoint, I would think that's correct. Yeah, we would basically reaping our upgrades from our upgrades that we've made an investment in the infrastructure surrounding the property.
Thank you. Commissioner Dutton, you had a point?
No questions, sir. No.
Any other questions for staff? I see the developers representatives at the back of the room. Does anybody have any question for Mr. Wood?
Chairman, I do.
All right. Mr. Wood, can you come to the podium, please? And then give us your name and address.
Sure. Todd Wood, 1804 Galen Drive, Johnson City. First, that was probably the most thorough presentation I've ever seen on a rezoning in Johnson City. Not just for the technical part, but providing information on the citizens' concerns. I haven't seen that before. That was pretty impressive. So because of that, I don't have to go through a whole lot. But I do want to bring up a few things. If I can get to the site plan. There we go. Access to the property. There's been talk about the stream. So the stream runs through here, all the way across the frontage of the property. When you cross a stream, you have to get approval from the state of Tennessee. Our pipe would be of a sufficient length that we would actually have to formally apply with an aquatic resource alteration permit. When you do that, you have to answer Section 10 on the application that's an alternative design analysis. And one of the questions you have to bring up or information is there a way to access this property without crossing the stream? And there is here. So it would, anytime I've had to answer that question, that really dictates where that entrance is going to go, and it's going to be on Nave. The other thing, if the entrance was on Princeton, so you've got the intersection here, we would have to be as far away from this intersection as possible, which puts us down here opposite this commercial driveway, which is good that they're opposite. But the problem is there's another commercial driveway right here. And that's really unsafe. And now we're going to add another entrance right opposite. That, to me, doesn't seem like a smart thing to do.
There's another entrance for the building to the north, not too far north as well.
Okay.
Correct. So from a traffic engineering perspective, it would be
There's a lot
it
going
would not
on
be
right
safe.
there. Yes. So the entrance really, no matter what zone this property is, whether it stays I-1, R-2, R-5, split zoned, this entrance is going to be on Nave. So there was a question, what could happen with this property if it stayed as is? Honestly, nothing. Yeah, you could come in here on this I-1 piece that's back here, put a warehouse in there, but that entrance is going to be on Nave. That just doesn't seem appropriate next to a house right here. So it's already been mentioned about transition zones. You know, R4, R2, R4, Princeton, so 4-lane urban road. It's not appropriate for R2. That's why it was probably denied 30, 40 years ago whenever it came through. So the stream forces the entrance over here. The entrance used to be here, and the owners of the property over here brought up a really good concern that the headlights would shine right into their house, So we made this adjustment in here to help with that issue. We added more parking, as was mentioned. The other thing that's been talked about a little bit is the bus stop that's down here. And people have talked about in the meeting last week and tonight about kids walking to the bus stop, that with this extra traffic, it'll be unsafe. Well, one thing that we're doing, and this is the city requirement, is we're installing a sidewalk along Nave. So right now, they're either walking in the street or they're walking in the grass. With this development, there's now going to be a sidewalk. Now, of course, the sidewalk is only right here. It doesn't extend all the way through their neighborhood. So we tried to address their concerns. The concerns within their neighborhood, I understand them. I feel for them. There's nothing this property can do about that. If that issue already exists now, there's nothing we can do about that. And if we don't focus on infill development, and it was a great question, you know, is this going to cost the city anything? The answer is no. If development doesn't go here, then it's going to go further out. And now you're going to have extra costs for the roads to bring people back into Johnson City, which is going to impact everybody. Unfortunately, when somebody develops, there's always a neighbor. There's always a neighborhood. There was a neighborhood in commercial in Johnson City before other developments were done. So, yeah, it's tough, but from a land use standpoint, this makes perfect sense. And if there's any questions I can answer, hopefully.
I would just like to thank you for moving the entrance for one landowner. It's just, that's what I love about Johnson City, is we have a developer that literally changed an entire plan for one person. And that's special. You know, whether or not they agree with the entire property or not, you just don't see that in a lot of towns. So I appreciate that.
Okay, I'll pass that along.
Mr. Wood, I just want to clarify, you are planning on selling these units?
I believe the developer is.
The
I'm just the
developer?
engineer on that. I'm sorry
Okay,
if I didn't
I'm sorry.
clarify that. But yes, it's my understanding that they will be for sale. So there will be an HOA to help with maintenance and maintaining things, and usually they have a standard on what you can and can't do with the house and colors and things on the outside.
Thank you.
There's also a large amount of open space in this
I
project.
think there was
too.
also some significant questions about overflow parking onto the street. Is anybody here from traffic? Mr. Todd? I would like you to address the question of possibility of overflow of parking onto Nave Street. What's the likelihood that would be allowable? Where would it be permitted? You're close to a main intersection at Princeton and Nave. Do you need to back off away from the intersection to have any kind of street parking? What's the capacity of that street to have any street parking?
Yeah, in a typical location, at least 30 feet from a stop sign. And most of the time, we go further than that if there's a problem. What we tend not to do is post no parking to penalize people if they have an occasional event. So we will post a problem or post no parking if there is a problem, and that's brought to our attention. So that's not a problem for us to fix that.
And 30 feet would be, I don't have a sense of the dimensions. How far back is the driveway currently from the corner, Mr. Wood? Is that 200 feet back from the corner?
If I could zoom out, whoops, sorry, let's go back to this. Yeah, it's at least a couple hundred feet, because
Okay.
I think, yeah, that's 60 feet right there.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
60, 120, 180.
Okay, so that gives me
somewhere
a sense
around
of the
there. Yeah.
distance. All right. Can you speak to the impact of the traffic calming devices on Nave and Kipping, and how
Sure.
long those have been there?
Sure, and the neighborhood worked really hard together on this. The organizers and several people, probably in this room, have worked very hard to get that traffic calming in there, because they had to go door to door getting votes. And so things like that will calm the traffic and keep it under control as far as the speeds. It doesn't necessarily keep cut-through traffic from happening, but it does try to keep them under control as far as their speeds.
How long have they been in existence?
I believe we did that back in the fall, if I remember
So pretty
correctly.
recently. Do you have a sense of what the impact on the cut-through traffic has been because of those traffic calming
I
devices?
don't. We do intend to do a follow-up study probably in the next few weeks to kind of see how traffic has perhaps dropped.
All right, other questions for staff? Thank you, Mr. Todd. All right, I'll open the floor for public comment again. If you would like to raise your hand, if you'd like to speak again, I'll take you one at a time. Please come to the podium, give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes again. You're welcome to come a second time, but again, we did hear you the first time, so try to present something new if you can, please. Name and address. Thank you.
My name is Paula Eldred, and I live at 2223 Lakeland, which is at the end of Nave. Nave turns into Lakeland just by going around a corner. There's no stop sign. You just turn around a corner and you're on Lakeland. So there is a lot of cut-through traffic. I just wanted to address some of the things really quick that they said. One about the rezoning, that the reason that it was zoned one way on Princeton, but you really can't use that because you can't get across that stream. That's because you could come out on Nave. There's only one way to get out, and that would be on Nave, and no business wants to build there, right? Because they don't want their entrance on Nave, they want it on Princeton, if they're gonna be on Princeton. Nave is R2 all the way. There's no reason that I can see that it can't be another R2 there. There is an open field there right now that a house could go in. On the back side of it, there are storage units, and so, yes, I mean, they could extend their storage units, they could sell that to that business section on the back side. They say there's no impact, real impact to the traffic, but if you have 24 units, which the builder could not tell us yet whether it was going to be 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms in those 24 units. That is 48 to 72 more people if you have 1 person per bedroom, which, you're going to have 2 cars, 1 in the garage, which most people are probably in a small townhouse going to be actually using their garage for storage. So they're going to have to find a place to park their second car because they're only going to have 1 spot outside the garage. Then you have 11 spots extra for 24 people to have guests, a birthday party, anything else, park their extra car because they don't have room at their spot, especially if it's a 3-bedroom. They said to us that it was going to be like an entry-level home. They thought mostly it would be like starter homes, but with the price of housing today, these are probably going to be permanent homes for these people, especially if it's a 3-bedroom. And these, it's just, this is not the place for this. I understand that we have to build and we have to make room for the people that want to come in, but this is a subdivision. Would you stick this in, Lake Ridge or the Gump or any other subdivision that was there? Would you just plop a set of townhouses in there? Because it is going to affect my property value. If I had come up Nave to go see this house that we bought back in 2020 after we moved out of the Gump to this area, I would have stopped and been like, is this a subdivision or is this, why are there townhomes in the middle of this, in this subdivision? It just does not make sense to be that use. It can be another home. So.
Thank you.
Ms. Greer, I believe.
And no, I didn't cover everything the first time.
Your name and address again, please.
Okay.
2317 Nave Drive. Can I use the mouse?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If you're coming back 30 feet right here and you're parking, like she said, 11 cars, this is going to be parking all the way up in front of my house. I will not be able to get out of my driveway. There's no way. I have a 4-wheel truck, no power steer. I cannot curve around. As you see, which is not on this, right here is my driveway. that is planned that way because of the water flow that comes down this hill. It ends up at the commercial property and in the creek. This has flooded many times. This area right here has flooded. I have reported it to the city twice. They've come out and fixed the culvert, whatever you call that pipe. They've had to come and repair it because the road fell in. And now we're gonna put cars on top of it. So that is my big issue, this water. It is, I know you've had studies, but I've lived there. I've lived through the water. I've lived through the flooding up to my back door. My next concern is the traffic. I have grandkids. We walk the roads. This little walkway is not going to help the neighborhood. We don't have, what is it called? I'm nervous. Sidewalks through the neighborhood. So we have to walk on the road. Our road, I don't know if you've been through there, is narrow, especially with cars in it. So you're going like this through the subdivision to get through. The traffic comes in from, and I'm not Kipping, Brown, and Nave from Mount Castle. All this traffic, because it's gonna be backed up at Princeton, it's gonna have to go out on Mount Castle. A one-day traffic study is not sufficient. We need a 24-hour study, day and night. People work graveyard. This road is constantly with traffic. This is not a 8-hour study that can give you the appropriate information. I asked for a traffic study. I asked for that road, that culvert, whatever you call it, to be inspected. It has fallen in. I do appreciate Bryce. I have had many concerns. I want to thank him personally because he has done a tremendous amount of research on this property.
Thank you.
Sir?
My name's John Hughes. I'm on 1604 Ottawa Drive. That's on the opposite end of this neighborhood. I'll talk about a little something different here. When they're talking about traffic on Nave, which was studied, Brown traffic was not. If you go up to the next road, that's Brown. We are trapped in between Malfunction Junction and Brown. So what people are avoiding is when they want to go to the mall, they want to go to Target, they're not going to cut through Malfunction Junction. If you go through there at pretty much any time between 4 until about 6:30, it's a nightmare, you guys. I'll dare you to do it. So what they're doing is they're going to cut through Brown, which is a straight shot. We do have traffic calming on there, and then they'll come across Kipping to get to Mont Castle. It's the fastest way to get to Target. So that I would kind of use that as a rebuttal for the traffic study and talking about kind of what it's doing. If I'm on Nave, I'm going to jump onto Princeton, go up to Brown, and come down. That's how I get back to my house when I'm coming off of Oakland, if I go to Food Line, to MMA, whatever I'm doing down there. So I would rebut that traffic part right there. Let's take a look and see what they're doing up there on Brown also, because it's going to force traffic through here. Also, I would also say that this zoning is out of character for this area, because if you look around at the other R4s, R5s, what we're seeing is their egress, ingress, all in the same place. So it's like Cox Farm on the other side on Mont Castle. If I'm living in Cox Farm, I'm not going to travel through to get anywhere. So the issue here is what we're doing is we're putting this ingress, egress in our area that's going to cause more traffic to come in. The other R4, other R5 up the road, if you look at that, I can't remember the name of it, but it's all because they can go into their neighborhood, park in the driveway, and leave. It's purely a local street. Our interest is to keep this a local street, not turn it into a collector. And I would almost say that they probably don't get as much cut through right now as we do up on Brown and Kipping. So I wanted to bring that up. Again, I don't necessarily think that an R4 or any division should be inside of a subdivision. I think it needs to be ingress, egress only. I know we can't do anything about here, so that begs the question, is this an appropriate use, or could we look at going all R2? Because I think in the past, they've tried to buffer us and keep us kind of protected in the R2 zone. So maybe the interest, instead of trying to do the business and the buffering, is to keep that R2 character in our neighborhood. And I would propose maybe we zone R2 here to solve this problem, put in 3 houses and keep an aquatic buffer or whatever you want to call it against Princeton right there. And that would be an appropriate use. It would maintain R2 while giving a buffer up the area and kind of stopping the whole traffic. I know enough about planning to know that this was a tough sell tonight because I was complaining to my wife she was making me do this, but I'm glad to be here. And I just want to say that we please consider other things, and if nothing else, look at Brown, look at Kipping, because that's where your cut through is, because if you're going up that road and you're trying to get to Target, I bet you, and you know that way, you're going to cut through across Brown. It's a straight shot until we had those traffic calming things. It was pretty interesting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Next. Thank you. Please. Sir, you asked earlier.
My name's Keith Fields. I live at 2206 Nave Drive.
Say your name again, please.
Keith Fields. I know you guys, every one of you here knows this, but I think it bears repeating to the severity of this meeting here. Johnson City Zoning Code, Article 1 states that the code shall be for the purpose of promoting public safety, lessen congestion on the streets, and to promote desirable living conditions with the sustained stability of neighborhoods, protecting property against depreciation. This proposal does none of that. In fact, this proposal won't lessen congestion on the streets because it adds 24 units and approximately 140 yards of footage when the whole street of Nave Drive is 608 yards long with only 26 homes itself. So that's not going to lessen any. In fact, it actually doubles the traffic volume right at the entrance of the neighborhood. It does not promote desirable living conditions or sustain the neighborhood because it basically doubles the population of Nave, and with any population increase, there is more noise, there's more pollution, and inherent risk of increased crime. The proposal doesn't, per the city's code, promote desirable living conditions, protecting the property against depreciation, because numerous studies have shown that townhomes are more susceptible to valuation volatility. They tend to depreciate faster. They don't retain their value as much as standalone homes. So the statement that was mentioned earlier, like you'll resolve the current split zone condition, that could easily be resolved by keeping the buffer at R5 as is, rezoning the I1 and R2 to all PR2, or just rezoning it all to R2. And I heard someone mention, if you don't do this with the use of land, it gets harder and more expensive for the city. If you go right down Princeton, not even half a mile, there's a big open area of land right across from the convenience store with nothing around it. So, you know, the vast community is against this. It seems to be detrimental, and it seems to be in opposition to the city's own stated codes. It's been zoned the way it has been for decades, and the community has no issues with that. It seems to be an effective buffer. I think the big issue is, why change something that's working and serves in the city's interest as far as their stated codes to the detriment of the community that already lives there, when it can be, the whole issue with the multiple zoning can be fixed by zoning it all R2.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Steve Hunt. I live on 2217 Kipping Street. I've been there about 40 years, so I'm well versed on Kipping and the traffic issues there. I sent a copy of my questions and thoughts for the Planning Commission to Nicole, and I believe you passed these on to everybody here, so maybe you had a chance to look, maybe you didn't, I don't know. But anyhow, I'll go down on the key points here, because a lot of things have been hit, and I do want to applaud everybody that showed up tonight and all your efforts, because I know I talked to you for quite a while. So anyhow. Okay, seems like to me every time I look at this thing, it changes as far as the development plan. I've always considered this particular lot, if you've never been there, it's very interesting. You've got a biological bog there, you've got a year-round stream that goes through there, you've got wildlife, et cetera, et cetera. You hear that all the time, I'm sure. However, this area, this stream also picks up all the runoff from Kipping Street in front of my house. Goes from one side down the other, goes down through the field behind it, which is now Princeton Gardens, and then it goes down by your house back here, And so I know the volume of water that they get down there. So they do need some work on that. But you've got the stream, you've got this bog down there, and then you have the field. And if you have never been by there, you ought to drive by it. It's an interesting lot to look at. And I can see why there's zoning issues there. Let me look here. Let me move down here. This neighborhood has seen a large influx of young families with children playing, older pedestrians, and people walking with pets, resulting in the increased chances for accidents. We do not have sidewalks there. And especially on Nave, people park on both sides of the road. So it's a little bit of an obstacle course going down through there, and then you throw in the school bus route as well. This is a resident, this is a neighborhood. This is not a big high-rise development area, I don't think, in my opinion. I was involved with the speed calming implementation, as well as these folks back here. Good hand for them. And we had over 115 out of 125 voting families gladly signed the petition to have them installed by the city. They have slowed the traffic down quite a bit. We still have a couple hotheads that like to rev their engine going over the speed bumps, but that's probably standard. I have another thing here. Existing resident cars are already parking on both sides of the streets at times, which can make driving down a challenge and potentially dangerous for both drivers and pedestrians. So if you're proposing putting overflow parking out here as well, you're just adding to the problem. My opinion of this is that you're trying to shoehorn in a development that doesn't need to be there. The idea of keeping it as an R2 and trying to sell it off to a couple home sites makes a lot more sense to me on this.
That's your time, sir. Thank you so
I think
much.
that's it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Your name and address, please.
My name is Margaret Davis, and I live on 2216 Kipping Street. You've heard so many things from my neighbors, and my husband would have been here to talk, but he's in the hospital right now. But I just want to reiterate that so many times when we look at these zoning issues, we say it's good for the city. However, everything that's good for the city is not good for a neighborhood. And it's important for us to recognize that, as we say, we're living in an area where people are walking, jogging, there are tons of kids. The people from Princeton Gardens don't walk in Princeton Gardens in their complex. They walk around Brown or Nave and walk on Kipping. And Kipping is a pass-through from Montcastle because nobody wants to be driving because there's so much congestion on Princeton. So we're asking as a neighborhood, and I stand with this United with the Neighbor, to let's keep it a residential neighborhood. Let's make it zone 2 and put more houses there instead of adding to the problem that we currently have. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Come on. I will get you next.
Thank you for listening to us tonight. My name is Laura Aiken. I live at 2216 Lakeland Drive and have for the past 36 years. Johnson City is very special to us, as many of you know. We have recruited many families to this area, and it's all because of the good work that the city does. And with the schools, with everything that is available to us and has been for all these years. We chose Lakeland Drive because we're from Mississippi, and I wanted a flat front yard that my kids could play in. And in Johnson City, the hills are there, you know. So we have chosen to stay there these 36 years and loved every minute of it. The thing that I have concern with tonight is that this has been, I heard about it 2 weeks ago and then had to go out of town. This has all happened in a very short period of time for the neighbors that were not alerted earlier in the process. which I think you've done a great job again, explaining everything. My concern is the safety of our neighborhood. The children, we have seen, my children now have children. I have grandchildren in this neighborhood frequently. And we have seen it go from a neighborhood of a lot of families to one where we thought, oh my gosh, you know, who's going to buy these houses? To another influx of these young families with strollers and dogs and all those things that we want to keep safe. And like they said, we don't have sidewalks. The street is our walking path. And it's my concern that you put 24 more families of whatever size right at that entrance at Nave, when my whole street of Lakeland probably has 24 houses on it. You know, so that condenses, like everyone has said, I agree with what was especially said most recently, in that what's good for Johnson City proper and tax base is good, but what is good for us as individuals that have lived here and have supported the systems and really care about our community. We are a tight-knit neighborhood. We could have chosen to move somewhere else a long time ago, but we love our Fairlawn neighborhood. And I thank you for listening to us tonight and perhaps hearing that I would love to see single-family homes go there. I would love to see it be an R2. And just weigh the benefits in your hearts about it, because I think it's a very important, centrally located group of folks that love Johnson City. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Miles. I've lived in Johnson City all my life. The last 30 years.
Could you give us your address, please, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, 2220 Lakeland.
Thank you.
I've lived there at that address for over 30 years. In those 30 years, I've seen our neighborhood turn over from older to younger families, times. And I have seen an increase in the number of kids, strollers, bikes on our streets. We have no sidewalks for families to walk, run, bike, or talk to our neighbors. Our neighborhood is known for being a great place to walk and ride your bike. Our neighborhood roads are not only used by our families in the neighborhood, but also the families from the surrounding apartments. There is additional foot and vehicle traffic from businesses in our neighborhood. They walk up the sidewalk and walk up in our neighborhood at lunch and all. Enjoy it. Traffic hazards are some of the current hazards when entering and exiting our neighborhood from Princeton Road to Nave Drive. Turning east onto Nave from Princeton is a hazard due to the hill grade coming down Princeton. You must start slowing down early to keep other vehicles off your rear bumper and turn slowly onto Nave Drive so you don't sway over into the other lane of oncoming traffic. Turning south onto Princeton from Nave Drive is a hazard because of the steep grade of Princeton, which results in oncoming vehicles speeding. It seems to me that there's a 1,600-foot flatter grade from Princeton Road on Princeton Road between Nave Drive and Silverdale Drive, which would be a safer location for an entrance to proposed townhouses instead of an entrance on Nave Drive to get to Princeton. It has been stated that either the state, the city, or EPA will not allow entrance onto Princeton Road because of water issues, too many existing entrances on Princeton Road now. It's my understanding that it's been recommended to put the entrance on Nave Drive due to the number of existing entrances on Princeton Road. If that is the case, then will other properties on Princeton Road not be able to develop in the future? They cannot. Also, on that EPA issue and the water issue, if you contact the state of Tennessee and tell them that it's going to create a safety hazard, they will allow you to go across that. If we're talking about maybe lives versus money, think about it. If the city is trying to be consistent in their zoning R2 makes sense. It's already R2, all the way up Nave is R2. Your buffer is already there with the I-5. I'm not against some of the R4 zoning or anything, but what's best for that place is what it is now. That's why it was first put that way, and to keep all that. And
That's your time, sir. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
well,
Sorry about that.
One last thing, I wanted to thank you all for your service.
Thank
All
you.
the city staff and all the city employees.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mark Aiken, 2216 Lakeland Drive. I just wanted to bring up one brief thing I don't think I've heard before. And the corner of Nave and Lakeland Drive, there used to be kind of a buffer or pine trees around that whole corner. And that was the most dangerous corner. You know, people would come flying down there, and still do for the most part, even though we've got the little speed bumps. But dogs have been hit, children have almost been run over there. And so this plan's changed so many times, and oh, we're gonna put a buffer here right when you drive out. All these children are walking down that hill with no sidewalk in the street, and then people are gonna be flying out of those towns, oh, I'm late to work, I gotta get out of here. And they've got that line of trees right beside them, they can't see up the street. And we saw that, and finally those trees got cut down on the corner of, you know, Nave and Lakeland, which was tremendous for our safety, for our children and our animals.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Courtney Stewart, 2219 Lakeland. I just kind of want to piggyback off of that, and then Dr. Aiken, like you said, that curve from Nave onto Lakeland is like a turn. It's not just a curve, like there should be a stop sign and a turn. We ride our bikes all the way around the neighborhood, walk, and every time we get to that area, we tell our son, stop, don't go there without us, make sure we can look around it, because it is no visibility. So again, you've got 48 cars added on at the end of the subdivision. If they're cutting through to Mount Castle, there's a high chance that that's going to be an issue. We are in a neighborhood that's used to homes being piled in. We're not a D.R. Horton. Like, we know that we've existed like this. Like, I'm newer to the neighborhood myself, but we specifically looked for a neighborhood like this when we bought, because I didn't want to be in a high traffic neighborhood. And if you're buying new builds, you know that kind of traffic already. You know it's going to be there. This is an established neighborhood. It's been there for, what they say, 1958. Nothing's been on that lot, so I don't know. I'm kind of in agreement with everybody else. Keep it residential and build some housing, duplex even, but I mean, 24 units, 2 to 3 people per unit, that adds up. That's a lot of people, that's a lot of cars. And there's no way they're not gonna cut through our neighborhood. I also don't know that moving forward without an accurate traffic count, I mean, if we don't know that for sure, I don't know how it would be voted through if we don't know all of the details yet. So, think, he did say something about retaining the residential character. How do you know that it will retain that residential character if we don't have the plans for it yet, if we haven't seen the mock-ups, if we don't know what they're putting there? How do we know that? We have no way of knowing that. And then also a question I had, which they may or may not know, there is an HOA. Are they gonna allow rentals, short-term, long-term rentals? And if they are they gonna max out how many of those can be rented at one time? Because that also plays a factor in the people that would live there or purchase. So Airbnb, stuff like that, is that gonna be allowed? We don't know that. We never got those responses either. So I think that's all I've got.
Thank
for
you,
your time.
Deb. Thank you. You need more hands, sir? Mr. Greer?
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. Randy Greer, 2317 Nave. I'll kind of go beyond the things I feel like impact us the most. And again, I appreciate Todd. I feel like you've changed that plan twice for me. So I do appreciate all your efforts. As a group, you've heard. I just have to say how proud I am of our neighbors. Makes me proud to live in John City in this neighborhood. The concern, the care they have for the community. I'm just humbled. It's a great feeling to have. I want to just briefly mention the fact that I hope that the decision tonight is not based on, I hope it's based on more than just economics, more than just money that can be made. all the way from the Epperson family to the developer to the tax revenue that this might generate. I hope that money doesn't play a big part in this decision tonight. I hope you see and listen to what we've been saying. Our desire, the positive, the family friendly, the integrity of our community is that's what we care about. That's what we care about. And I want to mention too this that there's outside money that's funding the growth in our city. I mean, I know you've seen the reports I read in the 2023 Johnson City Economic Forum report how local incomes here can't support a home over 200K. And when I read that, I thought, well, and then also it suggests that building 5,000 new housing units next 3 to 5 years. And then and you're about to see it, that even the next 6 agenda items are going to be nothing but new home constructions, new homes being built. And there's not a shortage of new homes that's coming to the city. They're coming. They're here. And the money's coming in. Everybody seems like they want to take advantage of that new money coming in. On April 3rd, we heard about the assurances of ownership. No Section 8. We hope that stays. But approved. We just hope that if this thing does go through, that I hope that maintains, that doesn't change. And we're fighting against return on investment. We're fighting. All we have is our voice, and the voices you've heard here tonight. I can't be more proud of them. To the Epperson family that's looking to sell, you've got you can put 2 nice homes on that lot, and the way building sites are in the city, you can just ask your price and you'll get it for those 2 lots. Money's coming in, money's here. And I think the rest of the property could make attractive green space to complement the entrance into our community. A much better use, in our opinion, of this property, and holds to the original vision, I think, of what this community is. To the developer, to the builder, there's other places to build, better suited for the scale of money that you're probably looking to make. And just do the math. It makes more sense. I think there's other places. To the Planning Commission, appreciate I don't envy your task at all. Bless your hearts. But my desire tonight I would ask just vote to delay or deny this request. We ask the property stay to be zoned as is, remain R2.
Thank you, sir.
Remain peace.
Thank you,
so
Mr.
much.
Greer.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
I'm looking for any more hands. We've worn you out. Thank you very much. Seeing no more hands coming up, I'll close the public comment. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. Who's got a question or comment?
I think, Mr. Chairman, I can go ahead with some comments here. As actually, I live in Cox Farm, so I'm very familiar with the subdivision. I walk my dog along Kipping, Nave all the time, walk the loop, and it's a great neighborhood. Also, we have on Cox Farm, we do have townhomes in front. There's one townhome on Zillow right now, I believe, $350,000 is the asking price, and one of the homes, and actually that backs up to that, those townhomes recently sold within the last year or two, and I mean they're certainly haven't been adversely impacted by the proximity to the townhomes either. So I mean, given that I'm walking around there all the time, I am familiar with traffic volumes there, and honestly, I think while the townhomes, this proposed development would add some additional traffic, frankly there is quite a bit of cut-through traffic there, but nothing that overwhelms the streets at all. So I don't think that would be adversarial. And honestly, I think this is a great use. It's a good buffer between the R2, Princeton, which is a higher traffic road, and the industrial commercial on it. I think, as it was pointed out at the beginning, from a city perspective, we're actually about 5,000 residential units short in Johnson City, to put it in perspective, and it's not. I mean, so there's just, as you're seeing, I mean, I think the comment's been made that we're seeing house prices pushing constantly. And the product that we really miss in Johnson City is this entry-level for-sale type product. So I think from a city perspective, this is something that this is exactly the sort of development that we would like to see. To Mr. Wood, really, I think it's fantastic to see the the response to the neighbors' comments and concerns, and practically resolving some of those issues. I think the one comment that was made with respect to safety, and I agree with you on in terms of site distance, and which you were talking about site distance and trees and things like that. But I would note that the developer is proposing to add a sidewalk in front there. So this isn't the same condition elsewhere. They're not. The people actually, the folks in the front of that thing actually aren't on the street. They will actually be on a sidewalk in that location. But those are just the general comments I have.
Thank you, sir.
I agree with Commissioner Dutton. I think it's a classic example of transition. And, you know, I understand the neighborhood folks' concern. I would have probably some of the similar concerns if something like this showed up in my neighborhood. I think the bottom line is the 5,000 that we're short, and in my mind, this is a more attractive step in the right direction as opposed to having to build 300 or 400 residences, you know, in one spot. And I too compliment Todd and the developer for being flexible and trying to respond to the residents' concerns. I think they've done a good job.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be a popular comment to make, but in this room tonight, but it is an appropriate use of this land. It adds a buffer. It fixes a mixed zoning issue. It would be undevelopable as it is. And it warms me that the developer and Todd have worked with the community to try to come up with some reasonable solutions. They've made 4 modifications to it. And I think they've come up with a reasonable plan that best suits this site.
Yeah, and I think just reminding everybody here, what we're doing is just based on land use. We don't get to tell a developer what they can develop or what they have to develop. I can't tell them to do an R2 if they bring an application to us for an R4, right? We can't tell them to change it to an R2. And we can't tell them where to build and what to build. You know, we can approve it or deny it based off the land use only. And our charge is that for the city. I think we'd be mistaken if we started taking hints from a certain neighborhood and do what that neighborhood wants, because it's better for the neighborhood, but not great for the whole city. Well, then we're taking favoritism. And well, that's a wealthy neighborhood, and we take favoritism to it. We can't do that. I have to do what's best for the whole city, based off land use. And just reminding everybody that at the end of the day, this is a recommendation body to the city council. We don't make the decision here. We just make a recommendation to the city council. And so with that, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. We can vote up or down. I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented by staff.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the rezoning request from a mixed zone of I-1, R2, and R5 to R4 at 0 Princeton Road. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Lawrence, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
No.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield,
I'm going to do a quick Vice Mayor Murphy instance here real quick and just say, I really appreciate you guys all coming out tonight. I appreciate all your voices. I appreciate you guys all coming together as a neighborhood, and I think it's really beautiful that you guys love where you live and you're fighting for it. I'm going to approve yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy,
Yeah, I would mention that, I guess you took my thunder there. I will say that, you know, the concerns that you all shared have been greatly taken in consideration, and being approved or not being approved, the second step, is there another reading, or it goes straight to the commission?
It goes straight to
It goes
commission for
straight
clarification.
to the city commission. And so they will have 3 readings, from what I understand. And so you will have another opportunity, if it gets passed tonight, to voice your concern to the city commission I get one vote tonight, okay? I'm elected official. These guys are appointed. So we're trusted to make decisions on your behalf. How I make decisions is based on, is it right with Constitution? Is it right by law? Is it best for the community? And does everybody win? And so usually this commission, they'll have unified votes, split votes, and kind of see how it's going. But I'm going to vote no on this one. But I'm just.
No, please, no more outbursts, please.
Sorry. Not looking for applause, but I am, I make my own decisions and I have to live with them, right? And so if it goes before the city commission, just encourage you, voice your concerns. But I do commend this planning commission because they work hard, they put in countless hours, and there is a shortage on housing. There is a great shortage on housing, affordable workforce housing. That is a great need. So again, I'll cast my vote no.
Vice Chairman Oshenbein,
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
Motion to approve has carried.
Thank you very much.
Chairman,
Yes,
if I
ma'am.
may, while the room clears out, could we call for a 5-minute break?
Yes, we can have a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
We'll be back here at 25 minutes to the hour. Oh, I know. I know.
Water.
To order. Our next item up for agenda, for presentation is Ms. Pudney. I think you got Browns Mill Road rezoning. Is that correct?
Oh, wow.
Could I interrupt you for just a second? If you guys on that side want to move over to this side, you're not going to interrupt anything. If you would like to shift your seating, you're welcome to do that while we get ready for our presentation. And you can start at will, Ms. Pudney.
I'll wait and let them.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a rezoning request on Browns Mills Road from R2 to RP2. The site map it's across from Chickasaw Street. It doesn't have a current address, so Browns Mill Road. It is a parcel that is divided by Browns Mills Road, so it includes this parcel. However, the rezoning request is just for the piece of the property that is between the interstate and Browns Mills Road. The request is to rezone from R2, which is low-density residential, to RP2, which is a planned residential district, to allow for a recreational facility of indoor-outdoor pickleball courts and indoor pickleball and volleyball courts to be built on site. The RP2 is the residential district that allows for recreational activity without having to rezone the area into a commercial district. Current zoning, the entire area now and for future land use is to remain residential. So the proposal for rezoning at RP2 remains in line with the future land use map and current zoning districts that surround the property. And this is just more kind of aerial showing where it's situated on I-26 and Browns Mills, and a development that is across the street. And current zoning, like I said, is R2 with business and commercial going further up the interstate. The concept plan provided indicates 3 outdoor pickleball courts and 2 indoor facilities that will house indoor pickleball and indoor volleyball courts. The parking requirement, as it stands right now with the buildings, is 78 spaces, and they're requiring over 120.
They're
Offering, yes, sorry. They are offering over 120 spaces in case there's for tournaments, overflow, so there's going to be an ample amount of parking besides the just minimum requirement. Sidewalks will connect the entrance on Browns Mill all the way down to the existing traffic circle from Butler, so it connects current infrastructure and walkability from the traffic circle and roundabout. Landscape yards are required along public right-of-way, which is depicted on the landscape plan, the concept plan, all the way along Browns Mills on this property line and the front property line. And there's also a type 2 buffer that is going to be in place along this property line as it is abutting a single family residence. And I will add, you can see here that the single family residence sits on right here. In conjunction, there is a wooded existing buffer, but it is on their property and not on the proposed site, so they are doing a type 2 buffer. The requested, let me back up. The current zoning of R2 allows for 14.6 single-family lots to be on the property if it were to be subdivided as is and developed. The property and the usability of the land is difficult due to it being kind of a fill lot. It has a lot of fill dirt from the interstate development, so actually constructing high-density residential units is not feasible without a great monetary cost. The RP2 zone allows for 3.4 units per acre, which is 17 units total, which is only an increase of density of 3.5 units. However, as the concept plan indicates and how it's been stated in a previous presentation, The concept plan is binding, so there is no proposal for residential development, and if anything were to change with the plan, planning commission would have to approve it as well as city commission. So as of right now, it's just for a recreational facility. And these are some renderings that the developer provided us. So the concept plan, this is binding. These renderings are just kind of to give it more realistic view to the planning commission. So you can see how the two buildings and outdoor courts would sit on the property along with their buffer requirements. Utilities are available, water and sewer are available at the proposed development, and Travis is here, but I don't believe there was any concern since it's a recreational facility that will house a few showers and sinks. A traffic study was conducted, and Anthony can go into more detail if you guys have any questions about that. But a 50-foot turn lane on Browns Mill is required, as well as a deceleration lane, and those improvements will be at the developer's expense. And you can see on the concept plan that deceleration lane is indicated, so that it would sit there. The petitioner had their required neighborhood meeting on April 1st at 5 p.m. where we received comments and concerns from neighboring homeowners, which a few of them are here tonight. And their concerns were an increase of traffic on Browns Mills and Chickasaw being used as a cut-through for traffic. Nefarious activities occurring in the parking lot after hours, since that back building does sit far away from the entrance. There was comments or questions to the developer if they were to put security gates or cameras at the entrance, and he indicated that he would have cameras and possibly a security gate. Sound from the pickleball games being heard by neighboring homes, and like we showed on the concept plan and aerials, the closest neighboring home has that wooded buffer and a type 2 buffer provided by the developer, and possible site distance issues entering and exiting the property, which would be looked at and approved by our engineering department, and Anthony could speak more on that during the site plan phase. If this were to get rezoned during construction, it would have to meet the site distance requirements per engineering. So those were the comments and concerns from the neighbors. Looking at the land use, the land use and the rezoning, staff recommends that the recommendation be for approval to rezone to RP2 for the following reasons. The proposed development is compatible with existing R2 zoning districts that are around the property. It conforms to the future land use plan, will maintain the public health, safety, and general welfare, and will be compatible with the neighboring zoning districts. The proposed development maximizes the use of land and does not drastically increase the allowed density. And the land has remained vacant for quite some time, so allowing it to be rezoned to RP2 will allow the development of that property at a lower density than a high-density residential development.
All right, any questions for staff?
I do have one question, classic emergency physician kind of question here, but the interstate there, how that runs, it's incredibly close to those structures and high-density population structures. I don't know if there is a guardrail there or a structure in the ground that would stop an 18-wheeler or something just running and plowing through there or not. I've driven past there a whole lot, but I've never looked at it for that reason. But now that you were talking about it, it just kind of made me think about that.
Sure.
Because we've had, I've dealt with injured patients from those kind of things happening. It's very rare, but it is something I just want to at least bring up.
And I can speak a little bit on it. I don't have the contours up on this map, but there is a bit of
Distance and hill.
and elevation change from what would be the back of these structures to the actual interstate.
I see. Great, thank you.
All right, do you have a sense of how many outdoor pickleball courts and how many indoor there were going to be?
So there's 3 outdoor pickleball courts proposed. Indoor, I believe it was 3 to 6.
Okay, so
indoor,
with 3 outdoors, that's really the point of my question. And I had another question. Considering this is a binding site plan, if the driveway where it connects to Browns Mill needs to adjust for line of sight issues, will that require it to come back to us again, or is that?
It really just depends on how drastic it changes, if it moves a few feet.
Yeah, I mean, just glancing at that, I would have a little concern about a left turn onto Browns Mill from the property around that curve. I have a little bit, I don't know if Anthony's still here or not. It's fine, but if they do 10 feet, it might not make a difference. If they put it, yeah.
Yes, when it gets to the site plan level, and they have to analyze the site distance. And so if there were an issue there, we would certainly have them address it at that time.
Yeah, you need to, it'd be a 30-mile-an-hour road, so you need to be able to see 331 feet either way. So we'd make sure that site distance would be met.
Yeah, the issue that occurs to me as I look at this site plan are the green barrier trees along the property line.
And that's something they would have to address. So they would have to make sure that their buffer is back far enough so that it didn't block site distance.
Okay, so we may, it could possibly come back to us if a change is necessary to move that driveway.
If it's significant, yes.
Thank
I
you.
think this, it's a little bit low in this area over here, I believe. You might be able to see around, but yeah, you could adjust the trees somehow. But, you know.
Okay, it could be, well, it's not to be addressed finally today.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions for staff? Okay, hearing no other questions for staff, I'll open the floor for public comment. Anybody here to speak to the question one way or the other?
I have some questions.
You're welcome to come to the podium. Please give us your name and address, and you can, you've got 3 minutes, and we'll gladly take your questions. I'm not sure we can always answer them.
I'm Donna Hash. I live at 209 Chickasaw Street, up on the hill above this. I have a question also about the entrance and the fact that Browns Mill Road is a state route. Will the design, the improvements for the road design be handled with TDOT standards, or is that a private firm that will be doing the design, or?
We'll get you an answer,
Okay.
ma'am.
Expert is here. He's coming.
That's why I was like, oh, he's up here.
Yeah.
Mr. Todd, would you please address us with?
Sure. Actually, Browns Mill Road is not a state route, so, it has to follow our standards.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you have another question, ma'am?
I think that was about it, except for this concept plan is, I don't know, it's just, there's like 120 parking spaces there, and the majority of them are down at the pickleball courts. So any kind of improvements that they do or revisions they do to this concept plan, will that need to be reviewed again, or is this pretty much set?
If buildings move, if anything
Okay.
of great significance, if they added.
Because I think the developer said when we were at the neighborhood meeting that he possibly might add some structures, like another building or two.
That would have to come back before us again.
Okay, because that's why he was saying there's so many parking spaces. So, okay. All right. I
Thank
think
you,
that's
ma'am.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak to the question?
Just to clarify, I think the question was asked, the parking necessarily isn't binding. They have to meet the required parking space. Major changes in the building or the ingress, egress, and buffers, but
Or
there's some
additions of,
latitude
or
on.
additional buildings.
Or additional buildings, but there's some latitude on parking. He's showing an abundance of parking. That could be less, it could be a little bit more. The parking lot location could change possibly. The parking itself isn't a binding aspect of the concept plan.
Does that satisfy you, ma'am? Thank you. Yes, ma'am, did you want to speak? Could you please give us your name and address?
Yes. My name is Cassandra Mabe. I live at 211 Sequoia Drive. And actually, if this is binding, I think the consensus sort of.
Could you please speak to us?
I think the consensus, well, I wanted to make sure they agree, of the people in the neighborhood that we've talked with. We do like the plan, but however, the main concern is, as has been repeated very much tonight, is traffic, traffic, traffic. We're in the Sequoia Heights, but also there's Shadowwood subdivision right down. And I would just like if maybe Mr. Todd could explain if there'll be any help in getting the neighborhoods out of Sequoia Heights and Shadowwood onto Browns Mill Road with the increased traffic. With 120 parking spaces, and that's a lot of cars coming, back and forth, back and forth. It's already hard to come out of Sequoia Heights down Chickasaw onto Browns Mill Road. So that
We hear
is
you.
my main concern, and I think
Thank you very
of the
much.
neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are trying to address the traffic on Browns Mill. We did not reach out as far as Shadowwood and Sequoia Heights. There might be some traffic that does cut through there. The vast amount of the traffic should be on Browns Mill coming up from the interstate direction from State of Franklin and back over at Rome Street. So that's where we anticipate the majority of the traffic coming from, and that's why we asked for a left turn lane and also a right decel lane.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments from the public? All right, I'm going to close the public comment section. Ladies and gentlemen, it's up to us. Questions and discussion amongst us.
I think we probably remember the last project that was brought to us on this property, the apartments where they had people transiting across the street to
Yes.
use facilities. This is so much better and such a great use that complements the neighborhoods around it. So I'm glad to see this come forward.
To Commissioner Archambault's point, this, and I live very close to this proposed project here and property. It's way better than 100 and some apartments. But all in all, the pathway of traffic will need some attention, and so I trust that Anthony and his department will find means to improve that artery on Browns Mill Road, because it does take me a little bit of time to get here to City Hall from the house. But I do like this better than what was proposed prior some time ago. So could be a great addition to the city.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I drove out this property, in fact, twice today. And as a lifelong resident, this property has remained vacant because it's a challenging property to develop. And I think the owners and developers have identified a need, and I feel like this is an appropriate use for it. So I'm excited about it.
With these positive comments, Mr. Chairman, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the Browns Mill Road rezoning from R2 to RP2 to allow for the development of a recreational facility.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second to rezone from R2 to RP2 on Browns Mill Road. Any other discussion? Ms. Lawrence, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion to approve is carried.
Thank you very much. Now we move on to item number 5, voluntary annexation, and Ms. Hodges is going to present that.
Good evening. Now I get to find, there it
Good
is.
evening.
Good night.
Not yet.
We're going to be serving tea.
All
here.
right, so we have an annexation that I get to do, and I'm very excited about it because I am excited about what questions you may have. Where this property is on, it's sandwiched between Browns Mill Road and Old Browns Mill Road. And what they are looking to do is when they approached us, they would like to put a fitness center, and I need to say that I have accidentally renamed their entire business. It's Star Fitness, not Tristar Fitness, and I will correct that going forward. So apologies on that. But what they wanted to do was to put in a fitness center along Browns Mill Road, and
Boones Creek.
Boones Creek Road, sorry. Talking about Browns Mill Road. On Boones Creek Road. And for that, and the types of services that they wanted to do at this center, they would like water and sewer services. So that's kind of how they approached us when it came to annexation. And as this property is in a larger part, we as staff wanted the entire parcel to come. So there is a portion that they know what is going to happen, and then there's a portion where a concept plan will need to come in at some point in time before further development can occur. So this front section is planned business, and what that would do is this fitness center. We have a concept plan to kind of show you, but that will actually come back before you next month for approval, because there needs to be some corrections with that, and we want to make sure that we get that right. And then the backside, which is planned residential, or an RP2. These zoning districts are very consistent with what it's zoned in the county. The planned residential PRD3 is very similar to what they're requesting, as well as this planned residential business district that is along Boones Creek Road. And I have lived off of both of these roads, which is, I guess, kind of funny. The future land use map has called for this area to be residential. This also is a part of, if you recall, maybe it was 2022, when we adopted the Boones Creek Corridor Study. This is in the neighborhood 2, which also has residential. And because most of this property is residential, I would say that this kind of is compatible. And so this is where we are in our timeline. And what is not in here yet is that this will come back in May for a concept plan approval. Just to show you what that looks like, their fitness center is kind of at the top of the hill. And so this property on the back side does drastically kind of fall off. Well, there's a slide for that as well. So we need to add some things to this before the concept plan can be approved, so we'll bring that back to you. But just to show you what this would look like, they also provided some elevations, again, non-binding, but just to kind of give you a feel of what they're looking at and what this would be from Boones Creek Road. The topographic map, I really wanted to highlight how it's hard in a plain picture to me to show it very well, but this is where the top sits, and this will fall down a little bit to Boones Creek Road. But from here down to the creek, it's a pretty significant drop off. So the maximum amount, and the plan of services talks that the maximum amount that could be built in the RP2 would be about 45 units. I do think that that might be on the high end because of the topo through here, but that's how we did the plan of services, of the maximum amount, like what kind of potential that would be. So the plan of services is in your packet. That is a super fun document if you love math to prepare. And if you have some questions about that, I'm happy to answer that. I do want to note that because we don't know when the residential development is going to occur, I think that if you notice from the financial analysis that there is a deficit, I think that if you ran out about 8 years, that would break even. So whenever those start, the costs would probably break even in about 8 years, because it's hard to capture some of that without knowing when these will start. It could start in 3 to 5 years. It could start in 7 to 10, kind of up to when they would like to do that. And staff recommends approval of the zoning assignment as well as an adoption of the plan of services, and would recommend annexing this area into the city. I think there was a question about as well, I want to take a moment. This area right here, I think that in 2012, they came in for annexation, and that was an extension of water and sewer. They haven't developed yet, so the projects that were a part of that haven't extended there because there hasn't been the development yet. So this would kind of also kind of Travis can speak to this more eloquently than I can, but this would be a part of some expansion things that they have planned.
Thank you very much. Question for staff?
So the plan of services that have already been approved is on Old Boones Creek Road?
No, you guys are looking at the plan of services. We have assessed the plan of services. Are you talking about the old annexation?
What, yes.
This one? Yes, that one's already been done. Like, that was an old annexation. The crosshatch is what we're looking at.
I understand.
Okay.
But previously, this body approved the old annexation
Ye-
and the plan of services.
This one, yes.
Yes.
In
Yes.
2012?
Yes.
And sewer and water, for example, would ultimately be extended down Old Boones Creek Road.
I'm gonna look at Travis.
Yes, in 2012, as I recall, there was a talk of a development that was going to go on. I believe it's the Carter property, the larger tract there, and annexation. I think at that time, I think it was city pursued annexation, if I remember it correctly. It was annexed. We made a commitment for services as development occurred, and since then, there has been no significant development other than one single-family home. I believe it's on this track here. And we have extended a 12-inch water main to this point here. We've done that within the last 5 years. And at this point, we have an outstanding commitment to provide sewer service to this area. And the plan is to extend gravity service from Thompson Road up and along Boones Creek Road, Old Boones Creek Road rather, I'm sorry. And that would be a point that would provide service to this entire annexation before you tonight.
Now, is there a clock that has started, or is there some event that triggers a clock that gives the city so much time to extend these services?
I'll have to have one of the planners answer that one.
I should know the answer to that question, and I do not.
Okay.
Will, do you, I do not know. I would have to look. I would have to go back and look at that for that particular annexation.
Yeah, an anticipated question on a specific annexation I mean, when we provide a plan of services, we're guaranteeing that we're gonna provide the services to development as it occurs. And from what I understand from what Mr. Ollinger said, the development hasn't occurred to warrant the expansion at that point.
Yeah. To date, the only development that has occurred was a single-family home on this track.
Mm-hmm.
We did provide sewer service to it. We put a pump in that we anticipate we will phase out with gravity service in the future. And we did extend the water line, so that's, we haven't denied anyone service that's requested it in the area.
So the $1 million that we're showing with this particular request is an incremental cost over and above what we would spend there, or separately?
Yeah, I believe in your packet, you'll see that, I believe it's about 75% of the cost that's in the packet is actually overlaps with the previous commitment to the annexation from 2012.
Thanks. Okay.
That's helpful. Very helpful. Because I swallowed really hard when I saw that number. Any
I've
other
got
questions?
one-
Yes, sir.
One quick question. I live in Boones Creek, so I'm very familiar with the property. Drive by the planned business property every day and frequently drive down the old Boones Creek Road. So how many units could be put on the RP?
45.
45, okay.
That's a maximum, and you're not sure they could actually do that feasibly because of the elevation difference?
Correct. But we're gonna plan for it,
Right.
so, when we're doing numbers.
Thank you.
And what are the surrounding zoning with those? Because I know there's a lot of mini farms on the old Boones Creek.
This was actually RP2, and I would need to pull up the big zoning map, because I don't know that I have a really great zoning map with this. I do not, is that the county zoning? But this area here is RP2, RP2, so is this. Oh, I went in a different direction. Yeah, this is not a good, I will, in future maps, I will make sure that I have, this is the ridges. Yeah, so this is Highland Ridges, so that's RP2, this 3, this is RP4 or 5. This is the ridges, so.
The gates of Highland Ridges is RP3. It's very close. The theory on the sign map, the RP3 is an extension of the existing RP3 just across the street.
All right, any other questions for staff?
Ms. Hodge, so our infrastructure or financial commitments, are those, I guess, triggered once development starts?
Yes.
Or would we have to start doing that immediately and wait for development to catch up?
They would be when development starts,
Okay.
and that's how we've analyzed it.
So if they started this year, though, we
They
break
would-
even year 8, you're saying?
So that's in the residential part. They're gonna start the commercial part
Okay.
this year. It's the unknown part is the residential part.
But it's still the same commitment from the city, correct?
Correct. Like when that starts, we will extend that.
And 75% of that cost we're already, in essence, committed to anyway. That's just a matter of time.
But, I mean, 12 years has elapsed and they haven't started yet. 13 years.
All right, other questions for staff? Thank you, Ms. Hodges. I'll open the floor for public comment. Is someone here to speak to the question? You're welcome to come forward to give us your name and address at the podium. You'll have 3 minutes.
How's it going? I'm Preston Whitehead. I live at 1540 Gap Creek Road in Elizabethton. Also co-owner of Star Fitness in Elizabethton. So this will be our second location. What we've built in Elizabethton, I would really try to extend to Johnson City. The community that we've built, like in the fitness community, wellness community, is really surprised me as it's went along. I know that we can expand upon that in Johnson City particularly. I am around a lot of the surrounding communities. I play golf all the time at the Ridges. I talk to people, and they're just as excited about this as I am. It's particularly unique to Johnson City because of the aspects of it that I haven't seen in this area. With hot and cold therapy, infrared saunas, Pilates studio, second to none, actually equipment in the facility. It's really going to be a step up of a lot of fitness facilities that you've seen when it comes to luxury. So I think that's important to note that it will be different. And I think it will be good for that area because there's nothing like that in the area. You have to go, 5-10 miles to go to another fitness facility. So I think it's good for that area. But yeah, I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else here? I'll close the floor. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to us. It's your pleasure. Questions?
Yeah, I think I just have concerns regarding just the finances of it. I mean, if 75% is overlapping, that helps, but I mean, it's a big outlay of money for one private business to go in that the taxpayers obviously have to pay for water and sewer to go out to the fitness center. And so I just have some reservations with that, honestly.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I will put forward a motion of approval of the voluntary annexation off of Boones Creek.
Second.
Okay, so do we need to have 2 motions, Will, an annexation and a
And,
zoning recommendation?
And plan services.
You
I'll
need to
amend the
include both-
motion.
Yeah, you need to include both in the motion. You can do it
for
that
the-
way.
For the annexation and the plan
Plan
services.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, I have a motion to approve the annexation, recommend the annexation request and the plan of services. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
All right, I have a motion to approve the rezone, recommendation for the annexation. and the plan of services. Any more comments or questions or discussion? I had one point of clarification that I want to ask, and it may require Travis to answer the question, or Whitney. I'll throw the question out and think it's between the two of you. Is as they start and operate and build and operate the fitness center, what portion of the cost for a sewer and water extension does that trigger? That doesn't trigger the whole project. Is that correct? The whole water and sewer improvement project?
The capital cost, yes. Operationally, it's different. Like, because you've got, like, you can't just, you've got to put in the line. Like, you're going to have to.
You build the pipes.
You're going to have to build the whole pipe. So you can't, like, you don't want to come back and expand the pipes later. So that capital cost will be put in.
So the whole capital cost will be triggered when the fitness center goes in?
Yes.
Okay. I would not miss
Right?
that.
Okay. I mean, that's how I would think it is.
There's actually two parcels here. So it's actually, you've got basically two potential projects. Number one, as I understand it, the petitioner is wanting to start construction this year and maybe be operational this year. Is that correct? Okay. So-
Relatively soon.
Right. So it's possible we could actually serve this a different direction at a lower cost. We may put a pump in. It's a fairly significant project. It's about 1,900 feet of gravity sewer to do the whole kit and caboodle, which would provide service to both tracks here. The lower lying area on the back side, I'll call it, as well as the upper part. So we've got options, and
So
we don't want to delay anyone's project, number one.
But we also wouldn't necessarily have to make the full investment immediately that would service the larger tracts of property that may be developed someday in the future, or they will.
We would
someday
not
in the
have to
future.
make that initial, the $800,000 investment. We would not have to do that initially. We can pull the trigger on that, but we may not.
Okay.
There's a lot of factors here of which way we go, and timing's a big part of it.
All right, thank you.
So is there not water and sewer on Boones Creek Road?
There is currently, where their tract is, we have a line at Bob Hayes Road that stops there. There's a gap. And there is no water from Old Boones Creek all the way down to Bob Hayes Road. So there's water there, but the closest sewer is down along the creek at Bob Hayes and at Thompson Road. And we have 12-inch water along Old Boones Creek Road to this point. And it was also mentioned in the packet that at this point, we could only provide domestic service without a significant investment. We'd have to get a 6-inch line across the road rather than drilling a smaller diameter line for domestic uses. So that's part of the plan services as well, as an upgrade for fire protection there.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Does any of that discussion change your motion?
No, sir.
Any other discussion? All right, Ms. Lawrence, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion to approve has carried.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we are up with Ms. Putney, I believe.
Item number, can you announce?
Item
the
number
number?
6.
Okay.
So this is a preliminary plat for the Village at Beechwood Meadows subdivision. The property is located off of Alta Tree Boulevard and is zoned R2C, which is low-density residential. The proposed subdivision is creating 25 single-family lots for single-family homes. The subdivision requirements for R2C The minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet. Minimum lot width at the right-of-way is 50 feet. Setbacks are from the front 25 feet, side is 8, and rear is 25 feet. And just a note that I wanted to make present, the minimum requirement for the lot size is 6,000. For this specific subdivision, all 25 lots exceed that by providing 6,500 square feet, so they're going above the required minimum lot size, which gives them, you know, a larger, more open green space yard for those homes. This is just a plat of the property. The road that will be constructed to local street standards. All 25 lots meet the road frontage requirement of 50 feet. Some even exceed that to 60 feet as well. Sidewalks will be constructed along the new public road as well. Open space requirement, 15% of open space is required, where 7.5% of that 15 is active space, which is walking trails, picnic areas, biking. This plat in particular provides 15% of open space with 7.5 active, so it meets the requirements. And they're providing walking trails and picnic areas and picnic tables along the green space back here. And as I previously mentioned, it looks like I got ahead of myself on the past slide. The new public road will be constructed to local street standards per the subdivision regulations, along with those sidewalk standards as per section 4-3 of our subdivision regulations as well. There was no traffic study on this one for 25 lots. Anthony was comfortable with the plat as it was presented and did not require any traffic counts or traffic studies with this. So the plat, due to the plat meeting the subdivision regulations, we recommend approval for the preliminary plat.
Thank you very much. Questions for staff?
And the developer is here if there's any questions for him as well.
The developer, could you raise your hand, please? Sir, I just wanted to recognize who you were. Do you have anything you want to add?
I'm the engineer for the developer.
Anything you want to add?
I'm here for 3 hours.
I apologize.
My name's Matthew Bundy. I live at 190 East Main Street, Avenue, Virginia, and I'm the engineer of record for the development. And this is this was originally designed and approved before 2008, and the economy sort of crashed. And so this would be coming back and redeveloping that into, so I guess what's currently economically viable. So the utilities are already in place. We'll have to do some modifications to get them to work to this lot alignment, and the stormwater is partially in place.
Thank you, sir. I didn't catch your name.
Matthew Bundy.
Matthew, thank you. Any questions for staff?
I just have one question for staff. The open space, the active area, are those trails coming off going to what is the upper right-hand corner?
So it's a walking path.
Okay.
I believe they have it proposed as concrete, but these are picnic tables along the paths.
Okay.
So it's a walking trail with picnic.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman, motion to approve as presented by staff.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve the preliminary plat presented for Beechwood Meadows and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Lawrence, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion to approve is carried.
Ms. Pudney, our next item, could you work some magic and put two items together?
I'm going to, yes.
Thank
So there's 2 items on your agenda, a concept plan approval and preliminary plat. I put it all on the same presentation.
Ms. Putney, before you go any further with the next 3 items you'll be presenting, I want to make note that I have no direct interest in these presented matters. However, I do have a business interest with one of the parties involved. and I'll be recusing myself from discussion and voting on the next 3 items.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So you will start discussing the concept plan.
Yes.
Thank you.
What I'll do is, it's the same presentation for the concept plan and the preliminary plat, but the last slide has 2 motions or staff recommendations for motions. So if you have any questions per one, it's the same presentation. So starting with the concept plan, Woodland Grove subdivision was annexed into the city in 1996 and was given the RP3 designation in 1996. So it was not rezoned. So a concept plan was not needed for the rezoning. However, our zoning code per section 6-10-1-3 subsection 1 requires that each planned residential district, any RP district, requires a concept plan to be approved by the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners to ensure that the development is compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. So this is, in essence, the preliminary plat tonight is acting as the concept plan, since there was not one because there was no rezoning. So the commission will have to approve that concept plan prior to the preliminary plat being recommended for approval. So with that stated, the concept plan / preliminary plat, and if it's okay with you, I would just refer to it as preliminary plat from here on out, is a 118 lot single family subdivision with the RP3 planned, which is a planned residential zoning designation. The requirements for that is a 4,000 square foot minimum lot size, minimum lot width of 40 feet, and setbacks of 25 feet in the front, 7.5 on the sides, and 25 feet in the rear when abutting a non-RP zoning district. So in this case, it would be 25 feet in the rear. 25 feet in the rear. RP3 allows for 8.5 units per acre. This property is 45.57 acres, which would allow a total development of 387 units to be built, single family or multifamily. This proposed subdivision, as previously stated, is only 118 lots, so it's significantly less than the maximum density that they would be allowed to develop. And with like the previous plat, it's just worth mentioning, with the minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet, the developer for this property is providing a minimum lot size of 6,300 square feet. So they're 2,300 square feet over the minimum requirement. So they're providing larger lots than it also is required per our zoning code. This is just a clear view of the plat. The connections are going to be made on Cooper Drive, which is an existing drive, and Woodhill Road, and a interconnectivity stub to undeveloped property per our subdivision regulations between lots 115 and 116. The open space, and it's all detailed on the next slide as well, just this is easier to see. Open space requirement is 15%, and they are also providing 7.5, or it's more than 7.5% of active space with a gravel walking trail along their stormwater detention area. And those numbers just broken down. They're required 15% open space. They're providing 24%, 8 of which is that active space. The required stubbed and undeveloped property is between lots 115 and 116. That's right here. New public roads are being constructed to local street standards, which includes sidewalks on all new public streets and the bulbs of cul-de-sacs. So all the sidewalks will be along all public streets. The type 1 buffer along West Walnut, or backing the lots on West Walnut, so these lots here. The developer has 2 options: a 15-foot buffer with 10 type 1 evergreen trees per 100 feet, or a 10-foot buffer, so a smaller buffer, with a 6-foot wood or masonry fence and 6 type 1 evergreen trees per 100 feet. Per the plat, the developer is choosing option 1 of 15-foot buffer. However, they're exceeding that and providing a 25-foot buffer. So they're providing, and it's additional between this property, the edge of the property line for the subdivision, and the existing lots. It's 50 feet when they were only be required 25. Utilities, I can do a brief rundown, but I can also have Travis and Anthony provide more context. City water and sewer is available for the development. There was no concerns regarding getting services to them. A traffic study was conducted for this property, and recommendations and improvements were made. That would be at the expense of the developer. And I can have Anthony come up here and kind of go into detail. But just a widening of Cooper Drive and Woodhill Road to current city standards, along with Dresden Avenue, and I believe a traffic sign at this intersection.
We were just gonna say that, the roads have to be brought up to a 24-foot pavement width so that people can pass. I don't know if you've been out on those roads, but you really can't pass each
What
other.
are they currently? Do you have a sense of that?
It's around, I've forgotten what the actual width was, but it was around 12 to 16 feet. It's pretty narrow in some sections, so especially Dresden, so this would get it to a standard that you can actually pass both directions.
So I think what would be easiest is to do a staff recommendation for the concept plan and get, if you approve the plat as the concept plan, then we can move forward to the staff recommendation to approve the preliminary plat. So if you have any questions, be more than happy to answer them, but I think that would be the best way to do that.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Question for staff?
Public comment?
Motion or a question?
Is there a public comment?
No.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd move to recommend approval of the concept plan in accordance with staff recommendation.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion amongst us. There won't be public comment in this item, sir. I'm sorry. Any other discussion? All right, well, our motion is to approve the concept plan as presented by staff. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion to approve is carried.
Okay, we have further business on this item.
Chairman
Just-
Dagenhart?
Yes, sir.
I think some of the audience may be wondering why there wasn't public comment on this section. Could we ask?
I'll have the parliamentarian speak to that question.
Actually, I'll defer to our director.
Okay.
Mr. Roberts.
Okay. Thank you.
Concept plan wasn't tied to a rezoning, since no required public hearing on that item. Plats do not require public hearing as well. Public comment, and I know some people spoke to the question that signed up for public comment. That's really what public comments for, are those agenda items that do not have public hearing. It gives people an opportunity to speak at the beginning of the meeting, which several did on this property.
Thank you.
It's your discretion if you want to
Does
open it
anyone want
back
to
up
speak for the
public
question?
comment.
Sir, I think you were unhappy that you didn't get to speak.
Chairman, we voted on that.
Well, we've got another item to come to vote on. We have a second motion that we don't have yet.
With the preliminary plat, of course, if you know, the preliminary plat meets the subdivision regulations, and then it's, we just need to provide rationale why you would not approve something that meets the regs. But it is your discretion. if you
Yes, sir.
want.
Sir, do you want to make comments? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. All right, thank you very much, sir. Yes, you're welcome to. And in the future, maybe we can talk about how to make the public aware when there'll be public comment and not, so they don't attend. We'll talk about that.
Okay, again, my name is Robin Collins. I live at 3003 West Walnut. I guess maybe my issue was the fact that we were required to speak to this issue at the start, and we didn't have available the plans or the concepts or anything. So that was maybe an issue as well. The only thing I want to speak to, and Ms. Pudney has addressed everything that I talked about earlier. As part of my work, I drive all over Johnson City, Washington County. It seems like every little bare piece of property, there's something springing up on it right now. I still question the density on this particular development. It seems to me that looking at it from just the standpoint of that, and I've heard several of you gentlemen speak to how much we need single-family units. Are we trying to provide a need, or are we chasing tax dollars? That's my question. And I found out just tonight, there's 25 new units going up only within less than a mile from where I live on West Walnut. I was not aware of that. That's 25 more units I didn't know about, which is just is what it is. Again, I would encourage that it may be reconsidered and maybe the density be lowered slightly just for, again, safety reasons, traffic reasons, and infrastructure reasons I addressed earlier.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to come back up and
You're
speak.
welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
Okay, obviously I open the floor for public comment, so now I'm going to close the floor for public comment, unless anybody else wants to speak. You may as well speak.
You've waited a good 3 hours.
You haven't worn me down yet.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yes,
my
sir.
name is Michael Cox. I live at 3001 West Walnut. There was a mention of a traffic study that was conducted, and I'm uncertain of, even though there's two entrances and exits in and out of the community, most of the folks, I'm assuming, are going to then go up to West Walnut to go between Jonesboro and Johnson City. Just yesterday I sat at the end of my driveway for about 5 minutes waiting to be able to turn right to head to work. With 118 units, I figure one, maybe two cars per person. If they've got, if there's families with kids that drive, you could be looking at like 300 cars coming out of that area, just on either side of my property, and that's just going to continue to add to the congestion of West Walnut. And so to kind of, the density is probably my biggest concern with the planning, is just because the amount of people coming in and out of there are going to be now on either side of my property, in an already terrible situation.
Thank you, sir. Come on back.
I'll be quick, we're here late, everybody's tired. To clarify my two questions earlier regarding would they be willing to sell any of those behind the house of my in-laws? And also, if that road isn't gonna be a main entry point, what's the process if the developers here? I don't know if they're here, nobody's mentioned, and because this wasn't a rezoning thing, who's the developer?
Chap in the purple shirt over there.
I think if you want to discuss land sales, I'd just give the developer offline.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we
thank you.
can't speak.
I
to that
didn't know
question.
if there, because I asked those questions, I didn't get an answer, and y'all are gonna vote, and because this wasn't a rezoning, there's no other kind of.
I'm sorry.
So it's fine. I just
Thank
making
you.
sure that we can connect maybe. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm going to close the floor, and now we're back to needing another motion or discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is, relatively straightforward. Looking at from the presentation, I think the density is appropriate for the area. Note that the proposed lot size is significantly in excess of the minimum for the required district. With that, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second. All right, we have a motion to approve the preliminary plat for Woodland Grove and a second. Any further discussion?
I'll just make the comment. I appreciate you all being here, Mr. Collins, and I'm sorry I didn't get your name. But again, our charge is land use, and I understand the concern about traffic on West Walnut Street. I would be too. But you will have an opportunity to come back in front of the city commission and make those comments as well. Thank you. next month, I guess.
The next, when it will go to city commission?
Could be next week, or could be the first week in May.
All we can say is.
That'll be first reading.
It'll
So,
be concept.
oh, just one?
And you'll see it on their agenda, sir, on the website. They post that as well. That way you don't have to show up just to see. Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the preliminary plat for Woodland Grove, and no other discussion, correct? Ms. Lawrence, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion to approve is carried.
Mr. Ryder, welcome to the podium.
Good evening. Good evening, Commissioners, Vice Mayor. Good evening. It's been.
Is it tomorrow yet?
Or is it- I guess I should say good night before the night actually ends, let's see. This is a project I'm sure no one here has ever heard of. The Keebler, finally here with the Keebler preliminary plat phase one. We'll go over a little bit of the history in the presentation. I think most everyone is familiar with this. Just to reorient you, this is off the on Suncrest Drive in gray. This is the Ridgeview Elementary School located adjacent to the property. Delmer Saltz Road, Sam Jenkins Road. This was the history on this. This property was annexed into the city May 4th of last year. It was signed, single-family portion was rezoned R2B, and it was rezoned, it was rezoned from R2B to RP3 on August 3rd of last year. Concept plan was approved on the same date. This is a look at the preliminary plat, and I'll show a close-in the next slide of how it adheres to the concept plan. You can look, this is 362 lots for the entire development. This is 106 portion. There would be townhomes that were approved on the concept plan at a future stage. So this is across Ford Creek, this portion of the property as it works its way over to Sam Jenkins Road. So again, this is 167 lots of those 362. As in accordance with the concept plan, and this plat has met it, the developer guaranteed that he would stick with the concept plan, proposing the larger lots. You can see the total breakdown for the total development, which you'll see coming back at a subsequent date. You have 88 lots that are all are in excess of 6,000 feet. The minimum lot size is 4,000 feet, so they're all well in excess of that. You can see they range from 6,000 square feet up to 9,000 square feet. Typo, or actually incorrect information in the staff report. When I put that in, there's actually 5 public streets, not 7 public streets. I think this is the street right down here, some of which I think will probably be private in the next phase, but that we're not platting that one on this. So you can see these are fairly obvious the way they're depicted. These were the minimum lot sizes and area regulations for the RP3. The total open space area, you can see here we actually have a clubhouse, which it counts as open space. There'll be a stormwater management area here with a walking trail. It meets the active and passive open space requirements. This was my attempt at being Monty Honeycutt without Monty in the office. I wanted to cut out a piece of the preliminary plat and put it together, and you see I didn't do as good a job as Monty typically does, but sort of an old school way to try to present this and orient it in a manner where you could see this and this in the same direction. So you can see in its adherence with the concept plan, we're coming off of Suncrest here, townhomes that would be built in the later development. So this area here is roughly these lots. So it adheres to the concept plan. A deceleration lane coming off of Suncrest and a turning lane coming off of Sam Jenkins. The traffic study on this was massive, and it's required, Anthony Todd has reviewed it, also sent it to Tennessee Department of Transportation, and he's also sent it to Washington County. So if you will, I'll go ahead and let him, I know you probably have some questions about the traffic studies. he's the one that researched it. I'll defer to him.
The traffic study was about 250 pages long, so.
Could you present that to us tonight, Mr. Todd?
Call
that
Just
up
kidding.
so we can look at
It's some fun reading if you want to go to sleep. So the main emphasis for this part of the plat would be the entrance off of Suncrest and also off of Sam Jenkins. So there is a left turn lane required off of Sam Jenkins to get into the property to the extent that's possible. So the widening can only start at their property line. That's where your taper would start, and then you get at least a couple of vehicles could stack in there to go into
A
the
left
property.
turn off Sam Jenkins into the neighborhood?
That is correct.
So that's across in front of us, coming down from the school, turning left?
That is correct. And then there's also a right turn lane to get into the development as well. Do you have any other questions? I mean, there's more things involved in as it gets into the bigger part of the development. There's also recommended a traffic signal at Sam Jenkins. As they start touching the other roads, then there's going to be other improvements required there.
But we're achieving the appropriate level of service, correct?
I'm sorry?
We're achieving the appropriate level of service for the surrounding streets.
Yeah.
So you mentioned traffic signals at Sam Jenkins. Is that at Sam Jenkins at Sunset, Suncrest?
At Suncrest,
At
yes.
Suncrest?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
That's what I want to make sure I understood.
One other note, it was a big packet to get out, but the streets adhere to the local street section, cross-section standards and subregs. One thing that I did not put in the staff report that I neglected to, I want to bring to your attention here, they're requesting a variance to the boulevard. This is not more restrictive, they're actually proposing to make it wider. So instead of having a 56-foot boulevard, they want to have a 75-foot wide boulevard with 11 and a half feet grass and utility strips on both sides of it instead of the 6. And where that is the main entrance as you come into Keebler. So I had no objection to that. Public Works had no objection. Engineering had no objection to it. So we are recommending approval because, I mean, it is a plat. It adheres to the approved concept plan, the zoning code, and the subdivision regulations, and we also recommend approving the variance to Figure 9 of the subregs to allow for the wider boulevard.
And for any public that wasn't here previously in the last couple of years, we have talked about this property ad nauseum and had
Yes.
many questions and have grilled multiple staff members about this project. So no lack of questions at this time. We've likely asked them previously. So I just wanted to make that known.
Yes, and what we appreciate and I know Mr. Sells is here from the Gray community, and we've worked with him a great deal. I know he's spoken with the developer. What we appreciate with the developer in this project is that they presented the concept plan. We took that on good faith when we rezoned the property, that they were going to do what they said they were going to do, and then here's the proof with the preliminary plat. And that's why I wanted to cut that image out and make sure that you could see clearly how that fits, and it'll be with the subsequent phases.
And I might add that the developer has been very responsive to the community.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Any
Yes.
questions for staff? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plat as presented by staff and approve the variance of the subdivision regulations as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the preliminary plat as presented and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Lawrence, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion to approve and the variance has carried.
Thank you very much.
What's next?
Okay, what do y'all want to do now?
Home.
All right.
Order pizza.
Hearing no other business, I will adjourn the meeting. Sorry, what?